And the women's races this year. The red start is for the veterans and the virgins, as the first-time marathon runners are now known. And the courses come together where the red and blue lines join at about 3 miles. This is the first real tourist attraction, the famous tea clipper Cutty Sark, and the runners make a slight detour around the historic ship before rejoining the main road. The Cutty Sark is just beyond 6 miles, and then the course takes them onto Surrey Docks, where they enter after about 9 miles and leave at 11. It's a straight run then to Tower Bridge, and the thought, as they cross the Thames, they're almost halfway. The distance to Tower Bridge is 12.5 miles. The next loop leads through West India Docks to the Isle of Dogs, and then it's back towards the Tower, and the run through St Catherine's Dock, where the historic ships collection include Discovery, in which Scott made his famous voyage to the Antarctic. Also in the dock, the latest arrival, Godspeed, a full-scale replica of one of the earliest Atlantic ships and built in 1606. The 22-mile marker is nearby, and after passing the Tower of London, it's on towards the centre of the capital itself. The embankment, with the Thames alongside, leads at 24 miles to Northumberland Avenue. Then through the edge of Trafalgar Square with Admiralty Arch leading to the wide open spaces of the Mall, and Buckingham Palace beckoning in the distance. Just beyond the palace they enter the final mile of the race, a long birdcage walk. Then they go past Big Ben, and just yards later the finish on Westminster Bridge. Well, now, quite apart from the 2 starting points for the main race itself, there is a third race taking place today. It was introduced as an event in its own right last year, the wheelchair race, and here's Ron Pickering.
37 athletes have earned their right to go in this London Marathon on their chariots of fire, and they're carefully honed like all the marathon runners, and they've got their favourites too. Kevin Breen, a paraplegic from Dublin. He wears number 1, Jerry O'Rourke wears 2. There with the beard is Mike Karifilides, wears number 4, Graham Stones wears number 3. They've all been battling away. These are men who are under 2 hours 45, 37 of them on their way. And this will be as closely contested as the main race, and they really will be going flat out. The fastest time having been 2 hours 22. So they may well be caught up just before the finish line. But the race, the London Marathon, as far as they're concerned, already underway.
So the wheelchair race on its way, and there the men and women waiting for the elite start. In fact, we can hear once more from some of the competitors with David Davis.
Chris Dobbs, more used to underwater activities. I think you shadowed Prince Charles down on the Mary Rose.
Yes, that's right.
Do you approach this experience with trepidation, or are you looking forward to it?
Well, a mixture of both, really. I'm feeling quite nervous, but I'm looking forward to the finish, certainly.
You've also, I think, recovered from leukemia, and that's really why you're running.
Yes, that's right. I had a bone marrow transplant 2 years ago, and I watched the marathon from my hospital bed, and I hoped that one day I might be able to run in it, and today I am. And I'm trying to raise a lot of money for leukemia research at the same time.
Alan Hughes from South Wales, you had a kidney transplant in June 1983, I think?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Are you proving something to yourself by running today?
Yes, I think so. I'm proving to myself that having a kidney transplant can return you to completely normal health.
And what do the doctors think?
Well, the doctor said, provided I am careful that I don't get dehydrated, it is fair enough, you know, I should be just like any ordinary person.
OK. Now, here's a real local lad, Bob Wiseman. I have to ask you, how old are you now, Bob?
82.
And once again, the oldest competitor in the race?
So I believe, yeah.
I think you were about 3 years ago the oldest competitor.
Yeah, I think I've had it 3 times or 2, I don't know, 3 times, I think so, yes.
How are you keeping going?
I don't know, not this year anyway. I haven't had a good time this year, but I'm all right, I'll survive all right.
You'll survive? You think you'll do the 26 miles?
I'm hoping to. I haven't done 26 miles since last year, but I'm still hoping to survive this one.
This has got to be your last year, hasn't it?
You're telling me, not if I can help it.
You'll be back at 83?
Yeah, I hope.
We'll look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Bob Wiseman looks fitter than ever. And just hidden there in that group is last year's winner, wearing the distinguished number 1, Charlie Spedding of Gateshead Harriers. Never, ever beaten by a Briton. He's run 3 marathons. He won in Houston. He won here last year. And, of course, he got the bronze medal in the Olympic Games. Charlie, of course, a club mate of Brendan Foster, my fellow commentator. And he faces today the greatest challenge from a Briton ever, with Steve Jones taking part. Steve Jones, who set the world's fastest time for a marathon in Chicago last October, a time beaten yesterday by the Olympic champion Lopez of Portugal. But there are other athletes in this race who could cause some damage. Notably, Alistair Hutton of Scotland, who's in extremely good form at the moment, having won the last 2 Morpeth to Newcastle races, and also, with a challenge from West Germany, Christoph Hurler. A very quick word from Brendan Foster.
Well, you can see them already getting nervous, and a very nervous smile on Charlie Spedding's face there, I detected. And alongside there, right alongside the elite men or the elite women, Ingrid Christensen there, right on the edge of our shot, wearing number 1. We expect her to run more of a time trial than a competitive race, but the prospects for this event are magnificent in real athletic terms, David.
Christensen said to be looking for a new world record time for a lady marathon runner. And certainly conditions are right and the course is fast. 1 minute to go before we hear the field gun that starts them on their way. Now, just a reminder, this is the elite start we're looking at now. John Herring in the foreground, just gone out of shot, who's the start organiser. Alistair Hutton there is number 30. And meanwhile, on the other side of the common, we've got the veterans and the virgins. The virgins being the first-time marathon runners. They go their separate ways for a carefully measured 3 miles, and then the courses join. The red and blue courses join just before the 3-mile mark, somewhere in the Woolwich area. As the last few seconds of quiet, the officials leave, and all ready now for the start of the 1985 London Marathon. The athletes appear to be taken by surprise, and the pancake man has gone off very quickly indeed. If it's the same man that we saw last year, his name is Dale Lyon. He comes from the Midlands, and he's trying to break the pancake tossing record in a marathon. But meanwhile, these are the class athletes, and of course this year they're running for considerable prize money. Not only is there prize money down to the first 10 places, but there's also a special prize for a new course record. The course record set 3 years ago by Hugh Jones. And there's special prize money as well, a considerable prize, if they can break the world record, set yesterday by Lopez of Portugal, the Olympic champion, in Rotterdam in 2 hours 7 minutes 11 seconds. Alistair Hutton is number 30. The red shorts. And actually they've gone off very, very steadily. They ran the first mile last year in an approximate 4:40. They don't want to get jammed in that enormous pack of runners, but they also must be careful not to start too quickly.
Well, they all got a shock yesterday when we heard about Carlos Lopez breaking the world record and running 2 hours 7 minutes 11 seconds. And I think if any one of them entertained thoughts about breaking the Steve Jones's old record of 2 hours 8 minutes and 5 seconds, I think some of those thoughts quickly receded from the back of their minds when they saw the impressive nature of Carlos Lopez running yesterday. And I think, quite honestly, the media have hyped the world record in London because more so this is a race today.
What a fascinating shot that is from the heli-telly. The 2 streams on either side of Blackheath Common. The fast stream in the foreground, and on the far side, the veterans and the virgins. Just spotting 1 or 2 numbers for you there. 66 is Dave Clark. Also up there, 150, John Davis. Number 27, Nick Di Castella of Australia. We've got 71, John Kilsby. Michael Hurd is there, number 56. I saw Jim Dingwall of Scotland right up there a moment ago. Number 84 with the leaders. Tony Power is 2:77, by the way. Meanwhile, they're streaming through there. That's still the elite group of starters, stretching back across Blackheath Common and now coming back onto the road. A mass of athletes, and in fact there are so many that dictates the early pace, and that's one of the reasons, I believe, why so many athletes actually finish the London Marathon. They're not tempted to start too quickly.
I agree with you, David. It really, if there are elite runners in that pack, they're certainly being slowed down. There is a discipline to the start, and look, they've absolutely almost come to a halt, jogging through the gates. These are more of the fun runners, of course, but this is a salutary lesson. The clowns are there, as we knew they would be. It's pretty cold out there. Although there's bright sunshine, it's pretty cold. Some of them covered themselves early on because there's been a lot of standing around. But the euphoria of the London Marathon is already there. The streets are lined. They know they'll be cheered and helped on their way. And a lot of them filled with apprehension before the start. But they know a lot of people have made it, and that's helping them through the race. Squeezing through the gates out of the park, and all the charities that will gain immensely from today. You've heard about the Marathon team for muscular dystrophy. More than 900 runners will be running for that. They need £150,000 today, and Jimmy Savile will be there raising thousands of pounds. Almost every one of them inspired on behalf of charity. It's that sort of day.
Massive interest in marathon running reflected in the fact that 85,000 applied to run, but so many more women are running the marathon now. When the London Marathon first took place in 1981, less than 5% of the competitors were women. This year it's over 15%.
That's right, and it's not just the marathon, because the women are running shorter distances too. They're running greater numbers, over 10 kilometres and 10 miles, and I think that's great because there's no longer a stigma about women going out and training, and it's this shot that we're looking at now that's inspired people all throughout the country, and it will be today. They'll be looking and saying, if they can do that, and I can do that. The other thing about it is we're looking at the people who haven't actually passed the start line yet, so they've still got 26 miles to go there, Ron.
Indeed, I just saw a sign for the Lee Valley runners. Well, the River Lee, first on the right up the Thames. There is a real hold-up now, a real traffic jam. And elite runners are not going to get fast times out of this. There really has been a bottleneck. And I want Brendan and David to know that Jonathan Kilsby of Haringey led the London Marathon to start with.
And of course, a lot of these athletes wearing their own watches, and they're careful to start their own watches when they go through the start, actually get through the start, to get a correct time at the finish, because they're now some 5 minutes behind the starting gun. Those are the athletes passing the roundabout on the fast start after about half a mile, and meanwhile the leaders are approaching the mile point. Number 34 there, Chris Woodhouse. Behind him is Jim Dingwall, also with the leaders. Brian Scobie, Dahl of Norway, Jim Dingwall of Scotland, Bob Hollister, Anton, Patrick Pedersen, and Trevor Wright. Oh, you may recognise number 14 in a moment. Trevor, who used to be with the Wolverhampton and Bilston Club, who emigrated to New Zealand and has come back specially to run. Trevor Wright may well be wearing the all black of New Zealand. This is the leading group, and number 34, Woodhouse, member of the Derby and County Club. He's 33 and he's got a best time of 2:17, so he's pushing hard in front. Jim Dingwall, the experienced Scotsman, just behind him. 1:035, well up there with those leaders, and unexpectedly so, because he hasn't got an elite number. That's Hollister. And certainly the leader is pushing on very, very hard indeed. We haven't had the mile time yet. And meanwhile, the last runners are leaving the park. The oldest, as you heard, is 82, Bob Wiseman, running in the marathon as a regular event. And the oldest woman is Carla Ali, who's 71. She comes from northwest London. This is her first ever marathon. And the youngest competitors, well, there are two youngsters, a boy and a girl, both 18 today, which is the minimum age.
One of our reverends running at the back there, 58-year-old ex-paratrooper, fought in Burma, and he will be running through his own parish of Southwark and raising money for the London Docklands Trust. Brave leader this. Chris Woodhouse, 33 years of age. As David Coleman was saying, he's a 2 hours 17 man, so he knows what he's doing, and he's enjoying the sunshine, and he's enjoying his solo run, and the camera's on him, and he's taking his own time, but that's a very big lead early on. In the pack, of course, some of the better names we've heard. Ovindal is there, Jimmy Dingwall, Robert Hollister, Christoph Hurler. The great names, though, are a little further back. They've got their own timing mechanism. But meanwhile, there's a front runner, and they'll be watching him carefully to see whether he's going to run a steady pace for the first 3 or 4 miles, to see whether it's, to see whether it's the sort of pace they should be running at. Meanwhile, he's looking back. Has he gone off too fast? Already the question mark must be in his mind, Brendan.
I don't think he wants to be there, Ron. He's looking around, he's hoping for the group to catch him up, and I think he just set off, as he did, to get a clear start. He's probably now expended his nerves, he's got rid of his nerves, and he's probably most comfortable and realizing that if he's going to settle down in this race, because he's a very good athlete, if he's going to settle down in the race, he's got to get back into that group. And this is a good lesson in what not to do in a marathon. You shouldn't run away from the leading group within the first mile and a bit, unless you're trying to win the thing by a distance. And I don't think Chris really has that great ambition to win the thing by a distance. I think he'd be a little bit better off if he just relaxed and slowed down and stopped looking around and went back into the group.
The astonishing thing is, Brendan, that we've heard the time at the mile was over 5 minutes, which I find very hard to believe. We are in touch with the lead car, Chris Brasher, the race organisers in there, and we're told the time for the leader is just over 5 minutes. It may well be that Woodhouse is very surprised to find himself away at that sort of pace, but I would suspect that time. I would have thought it might be faster than that. We still have no news of how many have actually started. Over 16,000 had registered last night. There'd been a big dropout through flu and also through training interruptions through the bad weather. But the organisers decided that late arrivals could register this morning. And the last news we had was it could possibly be a record entry, but no one actually knows at the moment.
On that question, David, I was talking to Fred Lebeau, the organiser of the New York Marathon, and he said this is one of the great problems with all the big marathons. There is a tremendous wave of enthusiasm and everybody wants to get on. And not only are those are the dropouts from those who have flu, there are dropouts from those who have real apprehension about their training hasn't gone so well and they don't want to be seen to be backing out. So all the great marathons in the world in terms of numbers have this problem of a fairly large dropout just before the off. And that's a pity, because as you heard earlier, there were 82,000 applicants that wanted to run, and there'll be a lot of frustrated spectators that wanted to take part in this run and might have squeezed in. Although, having seen the bottleneck at the gates, I'm wondering, David, whether we haven't got enough runners anyway. 16,000 seems to me to be about the limit that we can handle through these streets.
Certainly that is suggested by what we've seen today. They're the largest Georgian facade in Europe, the headquarters of the Royal Artillery at Woolwich. That is at around 2.5 miles, and this is the first feeding station, and the leaders are not very far away. We've had a 2 miles time, actually, which makes more sense now. They went through 2 miles, apparently, the leader, in 9 minutes 56 seconds. The leader still Chris Woodhouse of Derby and County Athletic Club. And the big names are gathering behind Woodhouse. He's got a fairly substantial lead, 25, 30 yards at least. But now in the pack behind, we've got Steve Jones, who's wearing number 2. We've got Jim Dingwall at number 10 of Scotland. Number 12 is Peterson, United States of America. Won the champion Charlie Spedding. Just behind him, Christoph Hurler in the black vest for West Germany. Dahl of Norway is there wearing number 9. Dahl, who's often run well in London marathons. But Woodhouse enjoying his glory. And look at him putting his hands out. He can't understand it. I think he's finding it easy, and the pace is pretty relaxed.
David, I think he's having real problems in containing his energy, and really the secret is to contain your energy. And he's a very good athlete, and he's unsure of what's happening behind him. Maybe he's trained very well, he's rested for a couple of days, and he's come out, and all of a sudden, all of his enthusiasm and energy is just taken away from the leading group. But I can imagine that he'd be much better in that leading group than down the road, because in the leading group there, as you said, we've got all the names who've been talked about in the press. We've got the Steve Jones and the Charlie Spedding. And we've got right next to Charlie Spedding, we've been watching Christoph Hurler, who's the West German, who's come here with a great intention of running under 2 hours and 9 minutes. So they're all the right guys are there. The thing is boiling up, and one still where Woodhouse is confused out the front there.
That's the chasing pack. Charlie Spedding is 1, 13 is Hurler, number 12 is Pedersen, number 7 is Nick Rawle of Invicta, number 30 is Alistair Hutton from Scotland. Steve Jones is tucked in there just behind. Steve Jones wearing number 2, and also with that leading group is the winner of 2 years ago, Mike Grattan of Invicta. So Invicta there with 2 athletes up there, and they'll be looking for what is a fairly substantial team prize. Number 11, Martin McCarthy, who ran so well in the London Marathon last year. In fact, he was in 7th place, a member of the Oxford City Club. Just behind him, number 20, looks pretty big for a marathon runner. That's Erik Berger, a Norwegian, and indeed there are a lot of Scandinavians in this field.
I think it's fair to say, David, all the big names are in that pack. Everyone that's been reckoned by all the pundits. There's the winners. Put your shirt on who you like, but certainly the winner's going to come from that pack, and Chris Woodhouse out in front, and that gap is really substantially more than the 35 metres early on. It's about 80 metres, and I think he'll be a very relieved man when he's been caught up by the leading pack. When all the big names are around him, this man out in front will be very relieved indeed. There's the line marker. The shortest distance between 26 miles, 385 yards, but certainly no shortcuts can make it any less. The very minimum that they can run that's been certified is the marathon distance.
Chris Woodhouse, of course, a member of a very famous long-distance club, Derby and County Athletic Club. And one remembers athletes like Arthur Kiley, who's just completed a book running in the 1960 Olympic Marathon in Rome, where he went well for a long, long time in the heat and humidity before fading. They've certainly had some very good athletes at Derby and County over the years, but the pace is interesting. The fact that it's fairly slow at the moment is not really vital, because they'll be able to pick up in the closing stages, and the damage can be done if you go too fast too early. The scene right at the back, 2890, that's Chris Lamb, comes from West Yorkshire, from Ilkley, runs for the British Airways Club.
That's the sort of day it is, and there's a man out there hoping for some terrestrial power source, but a lovely day. The organisers have been dreading the fact that they one day may get a hot day, and 2 days ago there was some fear when the temperatures soared up to the high 60s. That would have been a problem. It would have been a problem for the fun runners. But the temperature has dropped, the sun is out. It will cool them off pretty quickly unless they can keep generating body heat. But it's a safe day for a London Marathon, and everyone is relieved at that.
Actually, as those back markers stream through, there's quite a race going on up front. And the anxious Woodhouse looking back once more, and he's being gradually caught. Charlie Spedding, Steve Jones, Christoph Hurler, all together there. And those are really the 3 big names in the field. But Alistair Hutton has got to be one of the best of the semi-outsiders. And certainly Woodhouse now well within their range. The scene at Blackheath, well, that's in Greenwich Park, I suspect, where the athletes were getting ready. All their clothes, of course, taken by special buses to the finish. And those are the articles they've been using to keep warm just before the start. And this is so well organised, the dismantling job at the start was already underway.
I think Chris Woodhouse is quite relieved now. When he glanced over his shoulder, he saw the pack right up behind him. He didn't really want to be out there. He wants to be in amongst that pack because he's got very serious intentions about this race, and they certainly weren't to run away from the field and try and win by, you know, 100 yards or a couple of minutes. But like you said earlier, the big three, Charlie Spedding, Steve Jones and Christoph Hurler, they've just followed the pace just quite naturally. And early days in a marathon, the first couple of miles in a marathon, the object of the exercise is really to conserve both physical and mental energy and not get involved in the kind of goings-on that Woodhouse has got involved with.
Fascinating figure there. Number 45 is Wilson Wegwa, normally a 1,500 metre runner and 5,000 metre runner. Rather strange to see him in the marathon. He's 36 now, the Kenyan. Certainly he's got a lot of basic speed, but whether he's got the stamina for this or the heart, one wonders. Just in front of him there, number 19, we'll pick up some of the numbers for you now, is Anton of Spain. He hasn't got a best marathon time. In fact, the best time we've got from him is 13:38 over 5,000 metres. 34 is Woodhouse, 1 is Spedding, 13 is Hurler, 30 is Alistair Hutton. Just behind Hutton and the headband is Pedersen of the United States of America. Steve Jones is wearing number 2, just showing there. Number 9 is Dahl of Norway. Number 7, right up there, is Nick Braun of Invicta. Tucked in on the inside, number 11 is Martin McCarthy, Oxford City. And they've just passed the 4-mile mark, so we may get a time there. And the time approximately, and it is approximate, at 19:45. Well, now you can see how the two courses come together. Coming from the top of the picture, those are the vets and the virgins. And coming from the left, the elite athletes. Now, as they join here, they run down on either side of the dual carriageway to an island. The fast men go around the outside of the island, the slower people on the inside. And this is carefully measured, so they're running exactly the same distance. And about half a mile down that road, the barriers disappear and the two packs join. The leaders now all together. Pedersen, Hutton, Woodhouse, Spedding, Jones, Dahl, McCarthy, and at number 46 there we've seen for the first time is Kus of Poland. Number 13, Hurler. And as they are in the Woolwich area there, they will be seeing signs for what has been described as the 8th wonder of the world, the Thames flood barrier.
The Thames burst its banks on a rare surge tide, causing massive damage and considerable loss of life. It happened again in 1967, and ever since, work has been going on to provide an effective flood barrier. 4,000 men worked day and night for more than a decade, and 5 were killed during that time, attempting to span the River Thames between Silvertown and Woolwich. The solution works on the same principle as the gas tap being turned off, to plug the hole so that no gas can escape. The massive gates lie on the bed of the Thames to allow ships to pass over, but can create a 50-foot wall at times of danger. Her Majesty the Queen officially opened the project on May the 8th, 1984.
I have much pleasure in declaring the Thames Barrier operational.
This meant that Londoners were £700 million poorer, but at last safe from the risk of flood. It meant, too, that London has a new landmark, the 520-metre Thames Barrier.
The barrier just out of sight of the runners as they follow the line of the Thames, but can't actually see the river. On the way now from the Woolwich Docks area towards Charlton. And meanwhile, news of the leaders, and this time we've got the right time at 4 miles, 19 minutes 42 seconds, which means they're on schedule for a very fast pace indeed, about 2 hours 9 minutes. That's after 4 miles. There's only 2 seconds slower than when Hugh Jones set the record. Again, to give you a check on numbers so as you can spot them yourselves, number 34 is the long-time leader, Chris Woodhouse. Number 1, Charlie Spedding. Number 2, Steve Jones. Number 11 is McCarthy of Oxford. Number 5, we're seeing him for the first time, is Jorgensen of Denmark. Jorgensen, who was third in the 1983 London Marathon. Just behind him is Dahl of Norway. That's just behind number 5. Number 20 who's up there is Berger of Norway. Also there is Nick Braun of Invicta, Petterson, United States, Hurler of West Germany. I'm just looking to see if I can see Mike Grattan of Invicta, who was the winner 2 years ago. 46 is Kuss of Poland. So there's a fairly international group there. Alistair Hutton of Scotland wearing number 30. Wilson Waigwar is 45 towards the back of the group. But at the moment, no sign at all of Mike Grattan.
Well, I think Mike Grattan has a reputation for being a conservative starter anyway, David, doesn't he? I think he likes to find his way through. I think he'll be in the second pack. The interesting thing is that Wilson Waigwar, who throughout his track career, we called him the head waiter because he used to hang at the back and then come with a fast finishing burst. Well, the head waiter is up with the leading pack now, no doubt about that.
And I think actually we caught a glimpse there of Mike Grattan next to Wilson Waigwar. Well, the Derby athlete, Chris Woodhouse, beginning to push it again. These boys approaching the 5-mile mark. Meanwhile, at Woolwich Barracks, after 2.5 miles, they're still streaming through. And these athletes be well advised to take on board liquid. This is the first feeding station after 2.5 miles. And of course, Brendan, the more liquid you can get on board earlier, the better.
Hello, Mum.
Yes, you must drink all the way through a marathon, but you must start off right at the beginning, because if you miss the early drinks, you could be in trouble. But actually, the conditions today are perfect for marathon running. You can see the trees there. They're not an ounce of movement, and the weather, it's about 9 degrees out there, so they've got fabulous conditions. And I think when we analyse the results in a couple of weeks' time, we'll see a mass movement forward in improved times, because we've got the great event, we've got the great weather conditions, we've got great circumstances for everything to happen, and I'm sure that there'll be a great increase in people's best performances. And really, if you come to London and you do a personal best time in amongst all of this kind of thing, then there's not a lot better than that run.
Indeed. And just to go on from what you were saying, there's been a lot more information, a lot more advice, so that even the fun runners are better equipped than they've ever been. And there'll be a greater percentage of finishers. They've all been told to take on liquid, and liquid more than their thirst demands. They've got to top themselves up for later. The wheelchairs race is running very close and reaching Cutty Sark. Just looking for their numbers. I think Kevin Breen's up there. Number 6 in the lead there, Chris Hallam. He's a 2-hour 45 man. Number 2 is Jerry O'Rourke, 2-hour 45 man. They're very close indeed. And for sure, they'll be cheered all the way. 37 of them. And this is what the kids come to see, of course. The fun runners who are going to make a real day of it. This is the carnival atmosphere, maybe at the back of the pack, but for them, it's going to be a great day out.
I couldn't resist saying it at the start when I saw someone in fancy dress run, but I wonder how you trained for a race like that.
Yes, it's like the fellow pushing the nurse. He said, I haven't taken her out on the streets yet. We'll try it today. Well, it's some trial, isn't it? 26 miles, 385 yards. I suppose he was a bit embarrassed, but surrounded by 16,000 others. The embarrassment lessons.
Well, back with the leaders. And we've got a 5-mile time now. They went through 5 miles in 24:35, which is spot on for 2 hours and 9 minutes. Incidentally, the record is held by Hugh Jones, set in 1982. Hugh's injured, ran in the Olympic team for Great Britain last year. The London course record is 2 hours, 9 minutes, 24 seconds. Wilkinson leading there. Nick Braun is 7. Steve Jones is 2. Petterson is 12. Dahl, just behind them, is 9. And Dahl, we seem to see as a regular visitor over here in the London Marathon. He was 4th last year and 2nd in 82. And in fact, did outstandingly well in the Great North Run, which is the half marathon organised, I think, by the Gateshead Club, but one of the great events in the Northeast. And I think Dahl won that quite convincingly, Brendan.
That's right, he did, and he said he was hoping to go on from there last year to the Olympics for a successful run. Well, he wasn't quite as successful in the Olympics as he hoped to be, but he's here today. He's back in good shape, and he'll be featured in the first 6, I would imagine. I'd be a little surprised to see him win this one, but he's good enough to be in amongst the leaders. And looking overhead there, right at the back of the group, you can see your friend David Wilson-Wegwa, and we watch him run 1,000 metres, 800 metres, 1,500 metres, miles, and 5,000 metres on the track. And all of a sudden his name appears in the marathon list, and I've got no idea why he's here.
Well, there's the top 6. It doesn't mean a great deal at this stage, of course, because they're tightly packed.
One has to say that Chris Woodhouse is full of running. He was caught by the pack and swallowed by it, but he's got out again. He must be feeling very good. He is an experienced runner, of course, and he knows what he's doing.
A couple of fun runners on the way through. Woodhouse is determined to force the pace. He went back to the pack, decided it wasn't fast enough, and they've gone through 6 miles now in 29:26, which is in 2 hours 9 minutes pace. So it's very, very fast now, and obviously the early mile information was not correct.
Jokers on the course, but a lot of charities will be benefiting from this, that's for sure. Richard Bennett, 40-year-old, from Doncaster, South Yorkshire, Stainforth AC, a 3-hour 30 man. Got his own business, and I'm sure he's collecting for charity on the way. Half an hour gone, and these are going to pick up the stragglers, I feel.
The road's already open behind the race. And of course, we're not likely to see any of the leading girls until Cutty Sark, where we've got fixed cameras, and we'll be seeing them go through there, which is about 6.5 miles, and they're approaching that now. We believe that is the last athlete on the course. And some fascinating figures. We've got a Jones up there, of course, Steve Jones with the leaders. Well, there are 178 Joneses in the race, but it's not the most popular name. The Smiths top the list with 251. The Jones are second, 178, and the Browns follow with 117.
That's what lies ahead. Marvellous, the most historic marathon route in the world, which is why there are athletes here from 47 different countries. And amongst these great fun runners, we've heard some of the names, but there are 1,495 engineers, 970 teachers, 735 policemen, 573 unemployed.
Well, we're approaching one of the great landmarks now, the Cutty Sark, and the leaders have just turned now to make the detour from the main road around the Great T-Clipper. The fastest T-Clipper on the run. The leaders go round there. There's a special ramp built, and then they go back, turning sharp left towards the main road. Now, at some stage here, we should see the leading girl go through. Woodhouse still the leader. Alistair Hutton 30, Charlie Spedding won. 13 is Christoph Hurler. Martin McCarthy is right there as well. Pat Peterson, or Petterson, I understand he's pronounced Peterson, in fact, with those leaders. And so too is Mike Grattan at the back of that leading group. You see the ramp they run across and then turn back towards the main road. And when they rejoin the main road, they're covered almost 7 miles and go on their way towards Surrey Docks. And I must say, one of the great improvements in the course is the roadway in the Surrey Docks, which was extremely rough, but now it's good, smooth running. The leader's back on the main road. And this is a curious run, really, by Chris Woodhouse, Brendan, because on form he really shouldn't be there, but he's looking good, and he's taken a breather. He's gone back to the pack. Now he's testing them again.
Well, he is looking very good, and he's obviously confident about his own performance. His winter running's been good, but I just think he's showing a little bit of inexperience in letting his his energy and letting his pace go in bursts. Because the secret is to get in the middle of that group and not do anything. Just run at the pace, not even get involved psychologically in the race, because really what you're trying to do is to conserve the energy in the early part, because the race hasn't started yet. These guys are running along. Most of them are comfortable at the pace. They know exactly what they're doing. I can imagine Alistair Hutton's going through the same process, because he'll be so comfortable, so he's almost jogging for him, because he's much faster than this. So the idea is to conserve the energy and not go out and run in bursts like Chris Woodhouse is doing.
Well, from the leaders to the last man, and this gentleman's come a long way to run in this marathon. Silvano Felicetti from Ferrara in Italy. And he's enjoying himself out there, but he's going to be out there an awful long time.
We think he's at the back, and at the rate that he's going, I don't think it's going to overtake too many. But looking in the middle, there's some wheelchair athletes in the middle, and we think that we may see a sign of our First Lady athlete. We'll be looking for Ingrid Christensen, but it may not be her, of course. And some of these club athletes will be delighted to help them on their way, because these girls are bringing the barriers down every week that they run. Jim Peters, the first British. There's Mike Carifolides in the wheelchair, and there's our first woman athlete, and it is the favourite, Ingrid Christensen from Norway.
Well, this is an innovation this year to allow the girls, the elite girls, to start with the elite men. The main danger is, of course, that they're taken along too quickly by the fast men in the early stages. But Christensen's very, very experienced indeed, and she, believe it or not, suggests that she's going for 2 hours 20 minutes, which would smash the world record by 3-4 minutes. And really, when you look back, Brendan, I think you quoted the figure yesterday. The first man to break 2 hours 20 minutes was Jim Peters, wasn't it?
That's right. I mean, and how great he was. He was an institution. He was one of the great marathon runners of all time. He ran under 2 hours 20 in 1953. And here today, Ingrid Christensen is quite seriously attempting to run close to that time. I personally think that's a little bit too quick. I think if she settled more for the 2 hours 22, which is Joan Benoit's world record, then maybe she'd have a better chance of that. Because if you go out too quickly, Ron, she could come back in trouble.
Indeed. Well, Jim Peters is watching this. He's been under the surgeon's knife recently, but the old Essex Beagle is in spanking form now. And he came to one of the press conferences, and he was absolutely full of admiration for these girls, and said he's dying for the day to see them break his 2 hours 20. He did it on the Windsor to Chiswick course. This is a flatter, better course than that. He thinks the girls are capable of it, and he really is hoping that today will be the day.
Well, Woodhouse is still clear of that bunch. He was 35th in last year's race, by the way, and he's just gone through 7 miles in 34:27. Again, almost smack on time for 2 hours 9 minutes. Steve Jones is number 2 in second place. Charlie Spedding is there. Pat Peterson of America. Christoph Hurler of West Germany. Alistair Hutton of Scotland. Martin McCarthy of Oxford City. All up there with the leaders. Incidentally, the last 3 miles, Woodhouse did put in a bit of a spurt at between 4 and 5 miles. He went to a 4:43 mile, then 4:51, and has slowed in the last mile to 5:01.
Interestingly there, Steve Jones left the course, ran across to a feeding station, took on water. There he is, not only drinking it, but splashing himself down to keep cool, because these boys out in front are now generating quite a lot of heat. And they're sharing the cups as well. That's the camaraderie of the marathon.
Christoph Hurler, an interesting competitor. We've seen a lot of him on the track. He was 5th in the Chicago Marathon in 1983 when he did 2 hours, 12 minutes, 14 seconds. He's got a very, very good pedigree as a cross-country runner and a distance runner. And he is alleged to have prepared specially for this race. Woodhouse looking very, very comfortable.
Woodhouse is looking comfortable there. He looks at ease at this pace. But in the main group, you were talking about Christoph Hurler, who finished 7th in the World Cross Country Championships recently, behind that great friend of mine, Carlos Lopez, who we all talked about breaking the world record yesterday. So if you take a kind of form line through that thing, then I would suggest that Hurler is probably the fittest of these men to run a 10-kilometre thing, or even a 10-mile thing. And nowadays, the 10-milers and the 10-kilometre runners are being much more able to translate that shorter distance form into form in a marathon. If this was a 6-mile race or a 10-mile race, then I would have to say that Hurler would be the winner. And I'm just wondering if nowadays the runners are getting much more used to running those longer distances, that the best runner, i.e. the best 10-kilometre or 10-mile runner, is actually the one that wins the marathon.
I bet Steve Jones might argue with you about that, as to whether who's the best 6-miler, Ron?
Indeed, but I think the great truism is that the standards of marathon are going up as more and more class 10,000-metre runners come into it. And they don't need too many runs at it to show that they've got the ability, because their training includes so much distance work. There's not one of them men in that pack that's run less than 100 miles a week in preparation for this race. And many of them did that sort of running plus quality running as 10,000-metre runners, and Lopez has shown them the way. And Lopez, incidentally, is 38 years of age, and many of those athletes there regard him as the greatest runner in the world. Now, coming out of that pack are some great 10,000-metre runners who've gone up and have grasped the 26 miles, 385 yards of the marathon, and are bringing the standards down all the time, as indeed are the women. So great cross-country background, great 10,000-metre background, and the move up, the transition to marathon, is the one that's bringing the standards down.
Just dropping back now to the Cutty Sark area in the 6.5-mile mark. They're fairly piling through there. You can probably spot your friends or one or two familiar faces there. Over 4,000 of these athletes, by the way, running in their first ever marathon. just watching the hundreds, the thousands go through there at Cutty Sark and in that area. It's worth remembering that the athletes you're looking at are a long way behind the internationals who are leading, but these athletes are all running inside a 3:15 marathon pace, which is quite astonishing. Well, Woodhouse has made another break. The interesting thing is, the last mile time I gave you was 5:01. That was when they had to turn left over the ramp at Cutty Sark, which clearly slowed them down. But suddenly, in the mile from 7 to 8, he's gone with a 4:44 mile and has stretched them out again.
Well, David, while we look at Chris Woodhouse doing impressive running here, there's incredible running going on in the women's race. We've got a time from John Disley, the course director, for Ingrid Christensen. She's gone through 5 miles in 26 minutes and 22 seconds, which works out at 2 hours 18 pace for the marathon. So unless she slows down dramatically, which, you know, maybe she's tempting Providence there by going that quickly, but that is astonishing running for a woman.
I'm sure, Brendan, she's going to benefit by running with the men. You know very well how she buckled almost when Charlie Spedding overtook her, when she was going along sailing nicely, but suddenly Charlie appeared alongside and was going that much faster that it psychologically was a bit of a blow. Now, she hasn't got that blow now. She's running with good class athletes. They'll be nursing her on her way, and there's every chance that this course record could be broken, and indeed the world's fastest time.
2:18 for a woman is so fantastic and so much ahead of a brilliant already world record from Joan Benoit that you've got to have your doubts about it already.
I share those doubts, Brendan. Joan Benoit's world record time set in 1983, 2 hours 22 minutes 43 seconds. She's running 4 minutes faster than that, and somewhere surely she'll have to pay for it. But this is one of the fastest marathon courses in the world, living up to the claims of both Chris Brasher and John Disley, both Olympic athletes themselves, the course organizer and race director. And Woodhouse there seems to be he's searching for a drink. I thought he was just slowing down a bit, and he got tied up with the wheelchair athlete Kevin Breeden. Kevin Breeden, who I think actually, if I'm not sure, didn't win the race last year. He was certainly well up.
He's the fastest man on the course, though. 2 hours, 22 minutes, Kevin Breen. And he's the leader at the moment. These fellas, too, doing 100 miles a week. And not only are they in tremendous condition, but they've honed their chariots of fire to perfection. These are special chariots that they're riding on. Alistair Hutton just taking a drink. Another fine cross-country runner and 10,000-metre runner, the Scot in the middle. I can remember seeing him run the 5,000 metres and 10,000 metres in the Scottish Triage Championships on consecutive days and winning them both handsomely. He's been a stalwart at cross-country and 10,000 metres for Scotland, a runner in the Commonwealth Games, but he's been moving up in longer distances, and if there's an outsider, as we were saying earlier, that is not one of the top 6, then Alistair Hutton to run a very fast time today, running alongside Charlie Spedding and Steve Jones, and this tall American who's a 2 hour 12 man, then he could make a breakthrough. Good to see Trevor right back. 14, there he is on the outside, and Wilson Waigua, the head waiter, has dropped off the pace just a little bit. This remarkable Kenyan who's now 32 and can run everything from 1,500, well, from 800 metres really, up to the marathon distance.
Incidentally, the wheelchair athlete we saw earlier as the leaders overtook him was last year's winner, Kevin Breen. He's got a best time for the marathon of 2 hours 22 minutes, which is going a bit. Pat Peterson of America there, Steve Jones just behind him, Charlie Spedding's there as well. Number 46 is Bus of Poland. He's been with the leaders all the time. Hutton's right there, Hurler's there as well. Who's that just tucked in there? Number 53 appearing for the first time. That's Taikanen. I suspect one of the Finnish athletes he is, in fact, and he's run 2 hours 11:15, so he's very useful indeed. Trevor Wright right with those leaders as well. Martin McCarthy is there. This is a brave run, though, by Chris Woodhouse. He's really taken them on, been unafraid of the pace.
Well, actually, David, the pace is staggering. We hadn't really noticed it creeping along there because he's been pushing it along. But they've gone through 9 miles in 44 minutes and 6 seconds, which works out almost exactly 2 hours 8 minutes for the marathon. So that's Steve Jones's world best time until yesterday that Chris Woodhouse is running at.
Well, the weather forecast wasn't too good for today. It was going to be showers, I heard yesterday at lunchtime, and a strong northeasterly wind, but it's turned out quite well. Well, the mile is still a long way away for these athletes, and at the moment, one of the great British traditions taking place, the changing of the guard. The RAF Queen's Colour Squadron playing the RAF March Past, I suspect. And don't forget, of course, today is Her Majesty the Queen's birthday. A birthday she shares with no less than 50 who are competing in the marathon. The change of the guard in progress, and meanwhile plenty of entertainment on the route with bands of every size and description.
Is there something strange in your neighborhood? Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! Is there something weird and it don't look good? Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! I ain't afraid of no ghosts. I ain't afraid of no ghosts. If you're seeing things running through your head, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! An invisible man sleeping in your bed. Who can you call?
Those runners passing Cutty Sark are still some 5 miles away from where that band is playing in Jamaica Road. The athletes have been running now about 49 minutes. And this is the 6.5 mile mark. Meanwhile, the view from the helicopter of the leaders, and you can see right on the right-hand side of the picture, the leader. And he's got, what, it must be 30, 40 metres. Chris Woodhouse. And that's the order at the moment. But there are more in the leading pack than that. And of course, second down to 8 and probably second down to 12, covered by about 2 seconds.
No one here to love or understand.
A lovely Cockney Street scene. Nobody's told Archie Macpherson that the Ghostbusters isn't always danced that way these days. They're cutting the rug, slightly moved on a bit.
Let's have all the policemen and police ladies.
But Jamaica Road, heart of the east end of London, and whenever there's a big occasion, these will turn out, and you can bet your life that charity will benefit from this.
The Pearly King there of Southwark, and by the way, the rector of Southwark is running in this, isn't he?
He is indeed. He's an ex-paratrooper, tough as teak, and will run through his own parish. That's Reverend Percy Gray. He was wearing K501 from St Crispin, Southwark, and they're raising money for the Docklands settlement. They want a bus, paratrooper in Burma, and don't forget Canon Derek Price from the Vicar of Thetford's running as well. Pick out your neighbours, they're all in there. Tell them that you saw them. Cutty Sark this is. They've been running 53 minutes. Big smiles on their faces, but the dawn of realisation, they've still got a long way to go. But a marvellous picture.
The leaders just leaving Surrey Docks, I think, there, and approaching Jamaica Road, where you saw the Pearly Kings and Queens. And that is at about 11 miles. But we should have the 11-mile time in just a moment. But the mile pacing seems to be very, very uneven. We're just having a check back on it at the moment, but Brendan Foster, the last mile was running 5:02, so they went through 10 miles in 49:08, still inside 2:09, but again, it slowed again, some 7 seconds, and from the previous mile, some 18 seconds.
Well, they've run some quick miles and then they suddenly slow down. They've got 2 miles in the last 10 miles. They've run on over 5 minutes, which is not reflective of the kind of pace they were running at right at the beginning and then in the middle. But I mean, I just wonder whether going around the Cutty Sark and twisting and turning, going over that ramp, that might explain it, because really they are running very, very quickly. They're running about 2 hours, 8.5 minute pace, which is, as I said, very, very close to Steve Jones's former world record until yesterday. But the world record, I think, is disappearing out of the window, because that was such a tremendous run of Lopez yesterday.
Yeah, just a note for the aficionados. When Steve Jones ran that Chicago Marathon, at 10 miles, his time was 48 minutes, 46 seconds.
Graham, before they're here, roughly.
Oh, the band at Jamaica Road will have the runners in sight in just a moment.
2 to 3 minutes.
We just had another mile time. Between 10 and 11 miles, the mile was run in 5 minutes dead.
2 to 3 minutes. Our leading runners will be coming through.
And the information being packed to the crowd. And as I told you at the start, vast crowds watch this London Marathon. It's estimated that there must be over 1 million line the streets.
Nice to see ya, to see ya. Oh, come on, you can do better than that. Nice to see ya, to see ya. Lovely.
There'll be quite a welcome for the boys as they go by. And they're going to be going by there for an awful long time, because the distance now between first and last must be something in the region of 40 to 50 minutes. Because the last man, the Italian that we saw, can't be much beyond the 2 mile mark.
Give them a cheer as the winning board comes through. This is the leader board. 55 minutes, 47 seconds. Here we go with something for the winners.
Actually, it looks as if the Derby boy may well have been caught there. You can't get the shot of him there. But that was the chasing group, and he has been caught. Woodhouse 34. Pedersen on the far side, or Peterson of the United States. Then Charlie Spedding, Steve Jones, Hurler, Jorgensen of Denmark. And they're beginning to pile it on now as they go on their way towards Tower Bridge. Now, Tower Bridge is just beyond just short of the halfway stage. It's about 12.5 miles. Wilson Waywell there on the back of the pack, the speed merchant, and he's hanging in there well. I think Mike Grattan has just lost touch with the leaders. Mike, who was the winner in 1983. Coached by Cliff Temple, he's had a lot of back trouble and injury problems since, and certainly not back to his best, and he's finding this pace very, very hard, and noticeably too, although it's a cool morning, he's sweating very, very heavily indeed.
That's right. I mean, Mike Grattan really looks as though he's struggling. If you struggle about 10, 12 miles in a marathon, then you've got problems. But coming back to the sensational running I was talking about earlier, we've now got a 10-mile time from Ingrid Christiansen. She's gone through 10 miles in 53 minutes, 29 seconds, which is still under 2 hours 20 pace. 53 minutes and 29 seconds for 10 miles. I'd be quite happy with that myself these days.
Actually, the next chance we'll get to see the leader in the women's race, who's well inside world record pace, will be at Tower Bridge. As one of the great regular entrants, Jimmy Savile, who's running this year for the disabled, which is the specially named charity for the 1985 marathon. Jimmy, who's got a way of knocking out marathons week by week by week, which is quite amazing.
And he'll have a band with him all the way. What a tremendous character. The amount of money that he's raised for charity is astronomical. It makes the Guinness Book of Records. And not just in the London Marathon. His whole life is dedicated to that. And there'll be a whole bunch with him that'll cheer him on his way. And he's got a hand phone with him. And it's possible to make contact with him on the course. Not only does he go around and chat to all the London policemen on the route, but he's if anybody wants to talk to him, he's on the phone at the moment.
The leaders, meanwhile, are some 6 miles in front of that group and turning now the very slight climb to Tower Bridge. And almost in the centre of Tower Bridge, they crossed the 12.5 mile mark. Now it'll be on this bridge that we should have our first or our second chance of seeing the leader in the women's race. Meanwhile, Jimmy Savile back at Cuddy Sark is on the phone. But that's the real race, and they're beginning to stretch. Chris Woodhouse has been a pacemaker all the way so far, but the worst signs on the last shot we had at 11 miles that it was beginning to hurt. And Woodhouse is still there, though. Charlie Spedding behind him. Peterson, Hutton, Hurler. Number 46 is Buss, Jorgensen. Trevor Wright going through. And this is really developing into a tremendous race. Now, where's Steve Jones, number 2? Checking to see if he's there, and I think he's just behind that group. But it's absolutely vital now to stay in contact. They do say in a marathon the race begins at 20 miles. But of course, if somebody really wants to turn the screw earlier, well, there's no hard and fast rule at all about where the race begins. If somebody really wants to push it, as Hugh Jones did when he won in 1982, very, very early indeed, well, the rest have just got to go along with it.
And it's Trevor Wright that's coming off the back of the pack, David. He's suffered a little bit after that little burst of pace. Trevor Wright just off the pace at the moment.
Just slowed very slightly in the last mile. That was a 5:03 mile. As they begin to sort themselves out, I think there are going to be one or two athletes looking rather anxiously at each other, trying to weigh up the opposition, see how they're going, and there may be one or two little tests put in around this area.
Well, this is the time in the race when people will be starting to think about it, but probably the more experienced runners, and when I say that, I immediately think that our 2 best marathon runners, Charlie Spedding and Steve Jones, aren't really that experienced either. Steve Jones has only finished 1, and that was in the world best time. And Charlie Spedding's only run 3, culminating in his Olympic bronze medal. Right next to them, Hurler, who's the man I fear a little bit. This is only his 2nd marathon, and Alistair Hutton, who's the other guy in the leading group, this is his 1st marathon. So it looks like the thing that we've always felt for years is that when the good runners turn to the marathon, they don't really have to be that experienced. So the old idea about having to run lots of marathons to become experienced, these boys have just blown that theory.
Actually, perhaps the less you know about the pain, the better.
Well, actually, David, you've often said that to me in joking, but I'm sure that's the reason. Charlie Spedding told me, was speaking about that very thing yesterday, and he says one of the reasons he hasn't run a marathon since the Olympics is because it took him that long. It took him 3 or 4 months to forget how hard the Olympic marathon was.
That big American Peterson got a bit of a rolling gait, Brendan. He's spending a lot of energy getting there, isn't he? Rolling from side to side, but he's used to this. He's a 2-hour 12 man, so he's in very good company, but he deserves to be there.
Well, Woodhouse is beginning to stretch them again. he certainly has run with great courage, and he's full of determination. Meanwhile, we can go back to Tower Bridge, and shortly, if the times we've been fed are right, Ingrid Christensen should be going through the 12.5-mile mark, and we'll see then if she's still on course for the world record. Her number, F1. John Ritchie, the former world record holder for 100 miles, going through. Some very well-known athletes at club and former international level going through. And all these athletes at the moment are running inside 2 hours 20 minutes.
He's going to have a problem getting rid of heat loss, I'll tell you, that gorilla. Peter Jones, that is, from Huddersfield in Yorkshire.
Just talking about the times these athletes are running, by the way, the highest number of athletes in the London Marathon to finish inside 2:30 was in 1983, when 299 broke 2.5 hours. Steve Winter of Great St Harriers going through, 1:16. The timing clock shows it's still pretty fast, because this is 12.5 miles, remember, and Ingrid Christensen should be within view very shortly. Actually, I noticed 4:97 there was just in front of her at Cutty Sark. Max Colby going through, and there she is. And we'll get a time at 12.5 miles, which is about, Ron Pickering's got a running watch, and this is approximately 12.5 miles.
1 hour 4:45 for Ingrid Christensen, just dropping her arms. 64.54. Being helped along in the middle of that pack by these very good club runners.
The leaders by now, that's the Church of St George in the east. And the leaders must be just beyond the halfway stage now. We'll get the official time in a moment. Now, where is number 34 who was leading? Woodhouse. Halfway, by the way, 1 hour, 4 minutes, 40 seconds. Which is just over 2 hours and 9 minutes. And I know Charlie Spedding in particular plans to run the second half of the race faster than the first. Spedding is 1, Hurler is 13, 2 is Jones, and I can't see Chris Woodhouse, whether in fact he's away from that group or not, we're not sure. Alistair Hutton's with them, Peterson of America is there as well, Jorgensen of Denmark, Martin McCarthy in the all-red just off the pace, is trying to hang in there. And also going through now is this, what we believe to be the second girl, is Sally Ann Hales of Dartford, F9. A bit awkward to track them back because we're looking remote as you are at the pictures, but we believe Sally Ann Hales of Dartford is the second girl through.
Whilst we watch these going through here, these are men who are running quickly. We're looking into the group there. F9, Sally Ann Hales from Dartford, who ran a very good 20-mile race recently, so it's not a surprise to see her in there. And we'll get a check on the pace later on, but she must be running very, very quickly. If Christensen's running under 2:20, then I would suggest that Sally Ann Hales is running under 2:30 pace.
Actually, if that's so, Brendan, she must be very close to the British record set by Priscilla Welsh in the Olympic Games last year at 2 hours 28:54. But of course, still a very, very long way to go. F4 going through is Sarah Rowell, who ran for Britain in the Olympic Games. Also, by the way, a member of Dartford.
Indeed, physical education student doing a master's degree in exercise physiology, so she knows exactly what she's doing, she knows what it's all about, and those fellas are going to do well to stay with her. And Dartford winning the women's team race at the moment with 2 in the first 3. F468, looking very attractive. Mari Robinson from Blackheath, London, so she's fairly near home based. Her best time for a marathon, 9 hours 59.59, but she expects to run 3 hours 40. She's going to make up a gap of about 6 hours.
Well, the group there on their way to the Isle of Dogs and West India Docks first, and there's no sign there of the long-time leader, Woodhouse of Derby. Now, we're still not sure whether he's away from that group or not, or whether he's had to drop out. But certainly he was going smoothly enough. So it's Charlie Spedding, the champion, leading that group. Number 2 is Steve Jones, 12 is Peterson, United States, Alistair Hutton is 30, Christoph Hurler of West Germany is number 11. And Charlie Spedding's looking very, very easy indeed. And Steve Jones is watching him, as we thought he would, all the way. Bus of Poland is right up there as well. But perhaps on the heli-telly shot, it would be useful if we could just look slightly ahead to see if the Derby boy has got away or has lost touch with the leading pack. And in fact, there's no sign there at all, so it rather suggests he may well have dropped out. And information from the course tells us that they believe he has dropped out of the race. That's Christoph Hurler now beginning to push it. The tall West German. Steve Jones follows, Spedding in 3rd place. Hutton tracking Spedding. Jorgensen of Denmark, who's run so well in this race before. Peterson, United States, and also there, number 46 is Kus of Poland. It's his first marathon, by the way. He's run 10,000 metres in 28:24.
Jamaica Road still making its greeting felt and heard, and this will cheer them on their way, that's for sure.
Hip hip! Hip hip! Hey, well done, fellas. Give us a big wave as you come through. That's it. Well done, sir.
Reminiscent of a scene 40 years ago when the streets had their parties for an even bigger celebration.
Well done, madam, in the red shorts. You're doing well. Yeah, the pace is hot. This is the heartbeat. It's away, fellas.
Well, a lot of these athletes inspired by what they've seen on television over the last 4 years, and what an event this has become. This, the 5th running of the London Marathon. It has been said before, but it's worth emphasising once more. It's now taken its place alongside the great annual British traditional sporting events, such as the boat race, the Derby, the Grand National, because this truly is not just a London occasion, but an international occasion, and one for the people.
Raise your crowds. Hey.
It's quite astounding, really. It's very difficult to realise that these athletes are still at 6 miles.
Let's have you waving. Hip hip.
This is the 11-mile mark.
All right. It's nice to see them, Yeah, rock the boat. Rock the boat. Rock the boat. Rock the boat. Rock the boat.
Meanwhile, the crowd's lining Tower Bridge, wait and cheer. The guards on the mile, on the way to the changing of the guard. The guards going sedately through the picture, but meanwhile the leaders battling it out. out in front, and the race seems to me to be on now. There's a lot more determination out there among the big names, and it looked to me as if Spedding and Jones decided when Hurler couldn't get away. Hurler was the first to make a move, and then Spedding and Jones took over. And there are about, 6 in that group. We'll see if we can spot them all for you. Spedding, Jones, Peterson, United States, Hurler is there as well, Jorgensen of Denmark. And by the way, we've got the halfway time for Ingrid Christensen in the ladies' race. She went through halfway in 1 hour, 10 minutes, 10 seconds, way inside the world record, but slightly outside a 2 hours 20 pace that she wanted to set. Now, whether, of course, she'll slow in the closing stages, one doesn't know, or whether she'll try and run the second half faster, which I doubt she's capable of. She does appear to be slowing. But this battle is now really joined. Steve Jones comes across, it must be a feeding station, and the race is really on. Jones, Spedding, Hutton, Hurler, Peterson, Jorgensen of Denmark, and Kuss of Poland. So we've got a truly international lineup out in front. They've just gone through 15 miles.
Now this pair of runners, there's a husband and wife team taking 2 blind runners around the course, and their charity is for blind runners who do water skiing. They're actually running for, they not only run, but they also do water skiing as well. It's Peter Felix, who's running as the sighted runner, local government officer from Hampstead Gardens, and he and his wife taking 2 sightless runners around the course, describing it every step of the way so that they absorb the atmosphere of the London Marathon.
And what a combination this has become of carnival and intense competition. Here you see the joy, the festivity of the occasion, and meanwhile up front, the intense battle that's going on for the title. Charlie Spedding's there, Jones is there, Hurler's there, Hutton's there. Peterson dropping off the pace, the American. Jorgensen of Denmark, but it looks as if their leading 4 are beginning to get away, with Jorgensen of Denmark in 5th place, and in 6th place, Peterson, United States.
And the red brick road of the East India Dock, where all the new development is going on, where the walls have been torn down of the old Docklands scene, and where you can see across that new expanding 500 acres, the new garden, the new playground, the new industrial estate of London. London's rejuvenated Dockland. But of course it wasn't always like this. These walls have only recently been pulled down.
Once the busiest docks in the world, London has recently seen its decline as the container vessels took over and trade was moved nearer the coast. The whole image of the riverside changed, from teeming prosperity to slow dereliction. But once, everything from everywhere in the world came through here. London's Dockland was a city in itself, the most cosmopolitan centre in Britain, providing generations of families with work for those who obtained the highly prized docker's ticket. Cargoes changed with fashion, from exotic spices to silks, rum and tobacco, mutton and wool from the Antipodes, and remember, many of our wartime rations came to Britain through these docks. Right up until the 50s, the docks remained busy as the steamers plied their trade. Faster ships meant fresher fruit and perishable commodities from further afield, all stored and housed in great warehouses before moving on. Then the decline, a massive blow to the East End of London.
And now the rejuvenation. The new warehouses, the old ones being rebuilt. industry pouring back into the docks and jobs coming back to the docks. The new developments are there, including the National Indoor Training Centre for Britain's athletes. This is the new Dockland, 500 acres being reborn.
The oldest lady in the competition, 71, Carla Ali, comes from northwest London, gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning to train. And she's just passing the 6.5 miles mark. The leaders, meanwhile, enjoying that new surface out on the docks because it's much faster than it used to be. Charlie Spedding is beginning now to ask Steve Jones and Hurler what they can do. But Hutton has stayed with that pace consistently. He's not shown in front. He's digging in there behind them. The man who won the Birmingham Half Marathon last year, he's won the last 2 Morpeth to Newcastle road races. He's built himself up to this in the right sort of way, and he is a real threat. And Jorgensen of Denmark now in 5th place has rejoined that leading group.
Tell you what, David, you don't need a stopwatch to tell you that these boys are running faster now. You can see by the expressions on their faces that it's intense, and you can see by the little gaps that are growing there between the leader, Steve Jones, and Jorgensen, just at the back of the group, that every move is just stretching them a little. So Steve Jones there in the lead now, and I would suggest him making his first move in this race. Charlie Spedding moved alongside him, and there we're back looking at one of the walkers, number L599.
Leslie Davis from Scotland. Actually, it's interesting that because we've got Leslie Davis from Scotland with an address in Wales. And now we've got the right one, I think. Pauline Wilson, who comes from Epping in Essex.
From Loughton Athletic Club, well known to me. Well done, Pauline. I suppose, Brendan, they would all be watching Steve Jones, the Iron Man of this business. He still says, I'm still a track runner. And he ran that magnificent time on only his 2nd marathon. But since he found no wall at 20 miles and pushed on, this is the man they'll be watching. Charlie Spedding will want to watch him. That's what Charlie is expecting, for Steve to go almost any time from now on.
Well, I think every one of them has to be totally aware of this whole situation. And sometimes, you know, even when you're just stopping there for a drink, if you look the wrong way or take too long in finding your own particular drink, then you can find somebody doesn't take a drink themselves and presses on. But these are the, you know, 4 of these 5 are the ones we expected to be here. And I agreed with David when he said about Alistair Hutton preparing himself both mentally and physically for this. And they are all good track runners here. They're all good 10-milers. They're all good 10-kilometer runners here. And you know, Steve Jones in the front, just that yard ahead of Charlie Spedding. And psychologically, that means here's me. I'm laying my cards on the table. I'm going to press on. And if you're going to beat me, you're going to have to come up alongside me.
One extraordinary factor, Brendan, I think, is that Steve Jones really has to be regarded as a spare time athlete. He is a corporal technician. He does work in the RAF at St Athan, and so too is Alistair Hutton. They're both working. There are many, many full-time athletes at the top of international track and field, but it still seems possible, although he has a good deal of free time, it still seems possible to be a great marathon runner and still have some sort of vocational job.
Yeah, and I mean, Charlie Spedding for a year has had a year off from work, but he works for his living, as does Christoph Hurler, who's an architect in Munich. So they're all active athletes, they're all serious athletes, but all of them find that you've got to do some work to keep your mind off your running all the time. And we're looking overhead here. Steve Jones made a play, you notice, and this could be significant because Charlie Spedding's asked him, okay, here's me making my play, and Charlie's struck in the lead, and there's only yards in it, but it's all psychological at this point. Steve Jones led, Charlie's gone past him. They're not running, you know, they're not trying to get away yet, but they're saying, okay, there's my little bit. But Christoph Hurler has stayed there all the time, and Alistair Hutton has stayed there all the time. And like David said, Alistair hasn't made his move yet.
And in the build-up to this marathon, I must say that Charlie Spedding hasn't said a word wrong. He's been composed and quiet and full of respect for the other runners in the race. And it was interesting talking to him and to Steve. The mutual respect they have for one another is a very genuine one. And and that is coming out in the race and in everything that they've said.
Well, funnily enough, Steve did a press conference last week and he said, yes, I am the world record holder, but I'm a novice at the game, and Charlie Spedding's an expert. Then Charlie did a press conference and he said, well, Steve's the world record holder, I'm bound to his superior ability. And when they saw each other, they winked at each other, and Steve said to Charlie, thanks for putting the pressure on me, mate.
And he's putting a little bit of pressure on now. He's just edging along, picking up the pace. They know it's a very fast pace. They were predicting 2 hours 9 minutes or better, and the men capable of it all in that leading pack. Steve with his head down, Charlie slightly more erect.
And the one thing you can bet on is they're not thinking about the money involved at this stage. There's too much pain. It's really a competitive race in every sense, although, of course, for the first time ever, there are prizes. The first man home gets $15,000, some 10 or 11,000 pounds. The second man 12,000, and the third at 9,000. And in addition, there's a bonus of $10,000 for breaking the course record. There's also another bonus for breaking the world record, but I think we can forget that. World best it should be, of course, because marathon courses change so much. That's the 17-mile marker on the Isle of Dogs. And, well, Steve Jones is on record as saying that he has never believed, or he's always been led to believe, that the marathon begins at 20 miles. So, that being the case, they'll be off the Isle of Dogs before Jones starts to make his move. Now, in the Chicago race that he won in what was then a world best time, he went away from Lopez, the Olympic champion, and Costello, the Commonwealth champion, from 20 miles onwards. And one wonders if he'll try those tactics again. The last mile run in 4:53, and they threw 17 miles in 1 hour, 23 minutes, 49 seconds, just above a 2 hours, 9 minute pace.
Just a word about Jorgensen. Henrik Jorgensen, who wears 5. He's the Dane, 23 years of age. Finished 19th in the 1983 World Marathon Championships and 19th in the Olympics in 84. His best time, 2 hours 10:47 last year. He was 3rd in the 83 marathon, so he too has all the credentials and has every right to be in this leading pack and is still a threat.
Ron, I've got to refer back whilst we're watching these boys and operating just outside the course record pace. The most aggressive piece of distance running in the history of women's athletics is going on back there. Ingrid Christiansen has gone through 15 miles in 1 hour, 20 minutes and 7 seconds, which is still under 2 hours 20 pace. And when we keep talking about 2 hours 20 pace, remember 2 hours 20 is 2 3/4 minutes faster than the current world record, and it's one of the better world records, Joan Benoit's time in Boston. So we're witnessing here a remarkable piece of running. However it ends out, she's going to have a terrific time, but you've got to feel it's a little ambitious.
That's the race for first place in the wheelchair event, and they are approaching 17 miles. And incidentally, it's there that we shall see Ingrid Christiansen for the next time. Get some idea of pace. What surprises me there is that the wheelchair athletes are still in front. I thought I'd seen Kevin Breen overtaken by the leading athletes earlier.
It's Jerry O'Rourke that's leading. He's from Dublin. He's 21 years of age. He wears number 2. Plays a good game of table tennis and snooker. He's a double amputee. Jerry O'Rourke, number 2 in the Green Vest of Ireland, in the British Sports for the Disabled, in the wheelchair marathon, their London Marathon.
The wheelchair race having started some minutes earlier than the main race itself, and it's a bit difficult to tell who's leading in that race, whether there's someone way ahead of that lot or not, the 2 wheelchair athletes. We've still got the 5 together, and nobody's making any impression. But Jones beginning to do a bit of the work himself. Leading group on the Isle of Dogs. They shortly leave the Isle of Dogs and then turn onto the highway and onto Wapping High Street. That's back at the 11-mile mark at Jamaica Road, just about a mile from Tower Bridge.
Well, Grace in 2000, get away. Okay, top here. Archie says hello. That's what they need, stars and stripes.
The athletes at Tower Bridge.
Sugar. Honey, honey. Hunting, you are my candy girl. And I've got you, you. Well, I'm not lady with the blue men on her chest. Sugar. Honey, honey. Spine and drifter, well done, sir. You are my candy girl. And I've got you,
3,000 of these have never run a marathon before. Wilson Wagwa. Island Gardens, fair bit off the pace. 28 there, Andrew Girling from Bristol, Gloucester AC. Lots of husband and wife teams and lots of support.
You are my candy girl, what are you lots? He's a little devil, isn't he? Well, sir, I just can't believe it's true. Rock, 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 tip, rock, then I'm gonna rock. Around with Chris all the time, all right, hey! You are my candy girl, and you got me wanting you. Wave your arms in the air. A big and forward. Well done.
Well, there's a lot of fun back down the field, but the pace is hotting up in front. Still the five together. And Steve Jones on the outside seems to be trying to break them. About 18 miles gone, and they're through there in just over 9 hours, 2 hours, 9 minute pace. They've been on the way now for 1 hour and 31 minutes. And it looks to me as if Steve Jones is having a go to break them. Jones leading, Spedding in second place, Hutton is third, Hurler 4 and Jorgensen 5. And Steve Jones looks very strong indeed, but so too does Charlie Spedding. And Hutton has still made no sort of move at all, but there's a lot of bounce in those legs yet. Hurler in fourth place, has stayed alongside Hutton most of the way. Just briefly he showed in front, and Jorgensen keeps going backwards and forwards. Sometimes he loses contact by 3 or 4 meters and then rejoins them.
I would think Jorgensen looked at me as though he was drifting off the back of that pace, and Steve Jones has stepped on the carburettor there. He stepped on with a little bit of vengeance because he looked around when he took his drink, and he's clearly in the lead now, and I think he's making a statement for real, because this is the point of the race where one significant move, one stretch over a half a mile or so, could actually reveal to us what's going on inside these 5 people's bodies and inside their minds too.
I think Steve Jones wanted to know that as well, Brendan. He had that familiar look back that you see when an athlete's made an effort, wants to see what damage he's done, and he's decided he hasn't done enough, so he's given up the pacemaking. He just looked back across to see what was happening and found he hadn't lost them, and now Alistair Hutton has taken up the pace. Alistair Hutton leading. Hurler in second place. Steve Jones has dropped back to third now to take a breather. He made the bid just to stretch the others to see how they felt, and he found they were all strong. Charlie Spedding just behind the group of three there, and Jorgensen at the back. And this has got all the makings of a really dramatic race.
It's marvellous to see you.
Meanwhile, they're back at the tower. Christensen, Ingrid Christensen going through at 17 miles, and we'll check in a moment if she's still on pace for that world record. But she's looking very, very strong, and the fact that she started with the men appears to have paid off.
Alastair Hutton just checking his watch. Steve Jones tucked in behind Charlie Spedding, looking strong, so too is Hurler. Just past 19 miles. Surprising, really, to find Alastair Hutton out there, because he's the least experienced. There's not a great deal of experience over the marathon distance between the lot of them. Indeed, Steve Jones, remarkable history for him. He achieved his world best 20 years to the day that Abibi Bikila smashed Basil Heatley's world best in Tokyo in 1964. Here he is, just tucked in behind, and that really the greatest triumph by a Welsh athlete since Lynn Davis, Commonwealth, European and Olympic champion. But he has something that Lynn Davis never had, in fact, which is unique. He has a world's best time, not an absolute world record, but in the marathon a world best time, and they'll be thinking about that at this moment as they're approaching 20 miles.
Well, this has the making of the best London Marathon race yet, as they're approaching now the critical point around 20 miles. In the meantime, let's join Bob Wilson at Tower Bridge.
What is your name?
Vengo da Italia.
And
Emilia.
do you speak any English?
No.
Where are you from?
Italiano.
Italiano, that's good. That's all I know as well. Good luck.
You might have guessed he was Italian, that fella. It's Annibale Pani, and he's 50 years of age and from Ferrara in Italy. An insurance man. He expects to run in 3 hours 25. I suspect he's a little down on his time at the moment.
I must say, Ron, there must be a party over from Ferrara, because you may remember we saw the last man, who was an Italian, way, way behind the last, rather overweight as well, and he too was from Ferrara.
Interesting that there are 372 Americans running, David, 3 East Germans, 119 Australians and 75 New Zealanders, and I can tell you, I met the 119 Australians and 75 New Zealanders at the pasta party last night. They were all there.
The pipes and drums of the Scots Guards are in the mall. And the leading athletes, by the way, are now some 5 to 6 miles away. And what a contrast it all makes in the street scenes of London. From the Guards to the Pearlies.
I wouldn't give tuppence for your old wash chain, oh Diane, oh Diane.
Now I recognise
ladies
them.
and gentlemen, we've got another court jester here. And we'd like to hear you singing another one, which you can all do the actions to. This is Knees Up. So if the runners would like to do a bit of a knees up as they go through as well, we'd be welcome to watch you.
These are the athletes still going through at Ireland Gardens, and there's Sally Ann Hales, who we believe is in second place from Dartford, and on target possibly for a new British record. She's got a best marathon time of 2 hours 40 minutes, just over 2 hours 40, but my word, she's having some race, and if we're right and she is in second place, this is a truly remarkable run. That's the situation at 19 miles. All 5 together, and the London Marathon title for 1985 rests between them. There's a Scotsman, a Welshman, an Englishman, a West German, and a Dane. Steve Jones putting on the pressure again. Charlie Spedding in second place looks very relaxed. and Hurler is third. And it looks as if, once again, Jones is trying to break the party up. And we seem to have lost an athlete. Alistair Hutton has paid now for trying to press the pace, and Hutton now losing touch with that leading group. He pressed hard to get away, he didn't succeed, and now he's lost touch very slightly, and it's always, but always very hard to get back.
Yeah, we all thought Alistair was doing everything right when he made his move at the front. Maybe that was his last ditch effort, because it looks as though the distance and the pressure here has caught up with him. And whilst we're looking at the men here, back at 18 miles, we've just got a time from Ingrid Christiansen of 1 hour 35 and 56 at 18 miles, which is still under 2 hours 20 pace for a marathon. So we're not actually been able to see much of Ingrid's run, but happening behind Steve Jones, who's leading here, is so far one of the great runs of all time.
And Sarah Rowell is up there as well, wearing F4, so the two Dartford girls having a tremendous run and could bring down that British best ever time. Sally Ann Hales and Sarah Rowell, both from Dartford.
Well, another significant gap developing here. Steve Jones is pushing on in front. He's really testing the rest. Spedding is there. Hurler seems to be losing ground, and Jorgensen, with that rock and roll style of his, he too is dropping back very, very slightly. Jones is so strong. And in fact, a couple of years ago in Brussels, he astonished us about 18 months ago in a 10,000 metres by developing a finishing kick. A member of Newport Harriers, he was formerly with Bristol, and he's taking Spedding away, and the big two are making their break. The last mile, 4 minutes 50 seconds, and they threw 20 miles in 1 hour 38 minutes 30 seconds. And they're inside Hugh Jones's course record by some 20 seconds at the moment. And the way Jones is pushing it, it looks as if the course record is bound to go. Spedding is tucked in behind, letting Jones do the work. Hurler's out of touch now, so too is Jorgensen. And unless these two have made their break too early, the race is now down to the two of them. The two we expected.
Absolutely to script, isn't it? They really are running exactly as all the pundits suggested they would run, and at 20 miles the pressure would be on, and that maybe Charlie Spedding was the only man that had saved enough over the first half of the race to go with Steve Jones. That Hurler and Alistair Hutton's challenge might evaporate just here, and a 4:50 mile put in between 19 and 20 from Steve Jones. That's the heartbreaker, and the class man that's within, Charlie Spedding, anticipated it, has gone with it, and Steve Jones knows that the serious opposition is right on his shoulder. Still pushing on. It's hurting now, and the gap is growing between these two and the rest, that leading pack that have been with them for the first 20 miles. Hurler's suffering now, so too is Alistair Hutton. So is the Dane. And these are the iron qualities coming out between 20 and 21 miles.
They're both looking very, very strong indeed. And they are a little bit of a contrast. There's the power of Steve Jones and the relaxation there of Charlie Spedding. And Charlie Spedding, of course, has never, ever been beaten by a Briton.
And just look back, look at the gap that's grown over this last half a mile, David. It really is astonishing. If we can go back and see that burst from these two has really shaken off all the opposition. There it is.
Well, they're racing it out for third place. Jorgensen with the headband of Denmark, Hurler of West Germany, and Alistair Hutton of Scotland. And the gap looks to be about 30 metres. In fact, they really are driving. The increase in pace has been quite dramatic.
This is an interesting point, because Steve Jones has certainly split that group apart, and he's obviously applying the pressure. The other mile you quoted, 4:50, I wouldn't be surprised if this mile between 20 and 21 was even faster than the 4:50. But the thing is, if Steve keeps applying the pressure and he doesn't get away from Charlie, then psychologically, if Charlie moved alongside him, which it suggests there's a little gap growing there now, If Charlie moved alongside him, then it becomes a mental warfare, and none of us know what's going on inside those two, inside the two bodies and inside the two minds. But it's a fascinating point in the race.
And we're probably watching the fastest marathon ever run in Great Britain, because Hugh Jones' course record of 2 hours 9 minutes 24 seconds is the previous fastest ever done, and they're just inside that. But it does look as if the battle between them is causing them to run so much faster in these closing stages, they could well beat the course record.
Fascinating that Steve Jones has graduated not only from a 10,000 metre runner, but probably his reputation was best at cross-country running. Third in the intercounties back in 1978 and 11th in the world that year. Then he ran for Wales in the 5,000 metres at the Edmonton Commonwealth Games, where he finished 11th. But in 1979 won the Intercounties Cross-Country Championship in the rain and snow at Luton and was 7th in the world. In 1980 he finished 9th in the World Championships at cross-country and 4th in the 1980 Olympic trials for 3,000 metres steeplechase. But ever since then, cross-country has been a very important part of his build-up.
Very significant indeed that the last mile was run in 4 minutes 43 seconds, so the pace has increased quite considerably. Well, now we can go back to Tower Bridge and Bob Wilson with one of his old football colleagues.
I've got a very familiar face, Alan Ball. First marathon, Alan, isn't it?
No, first London one, Bob.
Oh, you've done one before, have you?
Yeah.
Are you enjoying it?
Great, yeah. Good fun all the way around. A lot of lovely people, you know. It's great.
Oh, you mean you're chatting to a few of the folks on the way?
Oh, yeah.
You look as if you're going strong at this stage, but it's only 12 miles.
That's all right. It's a bit better than this in the afternoon, I'll tell you.
I'll see you at 22.
Okay, Bob, great.
Meanwhile, a long way in front. The two are still racing it out. Wapping High Street approaching St Catherine's Dock. And it's Jones who's applying pressure all the time. He's running this race exactly as he ran the Chicago Marathon when he clocked the fastest then time in the world, beaten only yesterday by Lopez. And of course, Lopez, the Olympic champion, his run in Rotterdam, well, the course will have to be remeasured before his 2 hours, 7 minutes, 11 seconds is accepted. Jones's time in Chicago, 2 hours, 8 minutes, 5 seconds. And Charlie Spedding certainly is running faster than he has ever before in his life, and that includes the bronze in the Olympics.
That's right. So that's how we're seeing this little bit of pressure on both of their faces. But the thing is that Steve Jones, he's such a popular athlete with all the other athletes in the country, and athletic clubs all around the country on Tuesday night, they'll all be talking about Steve because he's not exactly the most talented of all our athletes, but he epitomizes everything about running and training that all the boys love to see, because they see Steve Jones. He's not your Steve Ovett or Sebastian Coe. He hasn't got that kind of natural basic speed and flair, but he is workmanlike in his approach to his sport. He is workmanlike and he pushes it, he takes his share of the pace, and he's really running well. And I just wonder why Charlie isn't running next to him. And that's maybe the only chink I can see at the moment, because if they've run this pace, and I don't know why Charlie doesn't go alongside him. Maybe he's hanging on, but we can't tell, and we won't tell for another half a mile or so.
Brendan, you spent an awful lot of time training with Charlie Spedding. I mean, he's got one or two decisions to make here now. As they go through St Catherine's Dock, that's some of the roughest road as they approach it on the course. The course nowadays is well tarmacked. It's a good fast course, and this one of the worst areas. But in fact, now Charlie Spedding has got a decision to make. Is he going to attack early? Does he wait for a sprint finish? What does he do?
Well, if I were Charlie, and I can't tell how he's suffering now, I would try and move just alongside Steve Jones, because Steve's been applying the pressure. He's been expecting to get away. He hasn't quite got away, and I'd run right next to him, just like Charlie's doing there, to tell him, hey, you're hurting, I'm hurting, but I'm still here. Neither of us are the world's fastest sprinters, so we don't know who would win in the last half a mile or so, but I'm here, and now the pressure's back on you, and it's great. I mean, look at it.
I think they're running to your script, Brendan, because he has moved up alongside, surely. And everything that Steve has done so far has been predicted, and Charlie's been talking about it all week. He knew the break would come at 20 or 21 miles. He knew even what time it would be, and there's a clutch at Steve Jones just checking on his thigh there, maybe a sense of cramp as he reached down for the back of his hamstring, but he ran in that Chicago Marathon a 4:43 at between 20 and 21. He's done exactly that. Charlie knew exactly what he would be doing, and really the mental game is going on, and they are running alongside one another now. I think Charlie Spedding knows what's going on, and I think he's in pretty good shape at the moment.
Well, he must have been listening to Brendan, because he's up there now alongside Jones, just getting the feel of the opponent. St Catherine's Dock now, and the 22-mile marker coming up, and then they go past Traitor's Gate, the Tower of London. Shortly they turn away there by the hotel.
St Catherine Dock, a marvellous example of what can be. That's a regenerated Docklands. East India Docks will be next, but look what's happened to St Catherine Dock. It really is a marvellous, marvellous, well, playground and visiting ground and tourist spot for Londoners already.
Well, these two by no means in the tourist business. Steve Jones having another hard look to see how Charlie Spedding's going, and Charlie's tucked in behind him again. Whether this will encourage Jones to try and make a break again. And you may remember Mike Grattan and Jerry Helm came through here together when Grattan won in 1983, and it was just at the edge of this cobblestone stretch that Grattan made his move. It was a pretty wet day that day, though, and the cobbles were slippy. Alistair Hutton, by the way, has gone into third place. Hurler is 4, Jorgensen of Denmark in 5th place.
Fire floats on the River Thames. The River Thames never looking more placid. And Jones is gone, he's in trouble, and Charlie Spedding sensed it, and suddenly a 5-yard gap is open. Maybe that cramp is a serious affair, and Steve Jones is surely in trouble on the cobblestones as they pass Traitor's Gate.
And this is an area that the athletes hate. Just beyond 22 miles, and they hit these cobbles, and it certainly gave him trouble. Now, Charlie Spedding sensed that and has attacked immediately. Meanwhile, Steve Jones trying to hang on, trying to run through the cramp, as Jeff Smith did in the recent American marathon that he won so easily. And in fact, Jones has got running again and is almost back with Spedding. 46 going through there is the pole course, but he's not in the first 5 places at the moment. That's Peterson of America, and now the leaders. And Jones is through that cramp, he's through the trouble, and back with Spedding. And back trying to attack. But he clutched at the thigh in Wapping High Street. Brendan Foster beside me shrugged his shoulders and said he may be trying to adjust his shorts, which will be soaking wet, of course, with perspiration by this stage. But in fact, it was quite clear when he hit the cobbles there that he'd got a problem. But it's equally clear now that he's on level ground. He's back running smoothly.
He won't give up either. I mean, that leg might be still cramped again, but he certainly won't give up, because he really is one of the hard men, and Charlie knows it. Charlie it was a brilliant piece of running from Charlie too, because he saw Jonesy slow, and they take no prisoners at this point, so he darted away, got a few yards, and there Jonesy takes his time, lets himself recover, and then he's back in the race. What a race.
I'm surprised he came back quite so quickly, Brent. One would have thought that experience would have told him to just edge his way back up to Charlie, but in fact he's not only gone up to his shoulder, but he's gone back into the lead again.
What interested me there was that Brendan was quite right. For a few strides after he got the cramp, he limped. He was actually limping, but he's run through that and he's quite smooth again.
And he'll be relieved now, because he would have wondered whether his race was going to come to an end, and then he's maybe going to get a little shot of adrenaline, because he realizes that it's not over for him. He's still got the chance. He's still got the chance to win the thing. They've still both got the chance of breaking the course record, which they're both obviously quite interested in. And we've still got the race down the mile and around and along across the bridge, and they may be like that all the way.
The pair in the city itself at the moment, in the city of London. Ahead of them, the run along the embankment with the Thames on their left. Then they turn right into Northumberland Avenue, into Trafalgar Square, leaving Nelson's Column on the right-hand side. left through Admiralty Arch, the long run down the Mall, past Buckingham Palace, and then the final mile along Birdcage Walk to Westminster Bridge. All good, fast running, and they're both looking so strong. Spaddy making no effort at all to attack, just content to wait. And it must be going through Jones's mind, will he suddenly get another attack of cramp? Twice it's happened, twice he's got through it, and no signs of problems at all.
And once again we ask the question, Brendan, why doesn't Charlie run alongside? Is he just using Steve to break some of the cool breeze that's on him? Is he using him for that, or should he not be alongside, eyeball to eyeball, as it were?
Well, there's only one point here that I can think about Charlie, is that he ran in the Olympic Games. He actually came onto the track and still had a race with John Tracy for the silver medal. And maybe he's decided that he knows that this race is going to come down to the wire, and he's going to let Steve Jones do the running, do the pushing, use up his nervous energy as well as his physical energy, and then maybe come with a rush at the end, because Charlie's already been through this situation, and Steve Jones has never had anybody with him in a marathon at this point. Having said that, he's only ever finished one, so we're not exactly talking about a catalogue of marathon races on either part. But whilst we're watching the action here, I've got to refer back. We just had a flash from time for Ingrid Christiansen. She's gone through 20 miles in 1 hour 46:40, which is still 2 hours 20 pace for the marathon. That's chunked inside the world record, and if she can stand up, that world record has got to be in danger.
Well, one recalls the great race in 1981, the inaugural London Marathon, when Beardsley and the Dane Simonsen dead heated. But I don't think there'll be any question of these two athletes going hand in hand through the tape. They mean it, and this is probably the finest marathon race we've ever seen in this country.
If either one had heard you say that, David, they'd have fallen off the course.
And in the dark, in the tunnel, Steve Jones has made his effort, and Charlie Spedding now is some 10 metres behind. This is a critical point now. Jones has gone for glory, and Spedding is 10 metres adrift. Coming along the embankment before they turn right into Northampton Avenue, and that break could be decisive.
If the leg stands up. He too has got problems. He's gone for glory, but Charlie must keep as close as possible, because there's still a lot of time for drama to unfold here. Steve Jones characteristically come back at his man and attempted to break him almost straight away, and that 10-yard break is a very critical one for Charlie, but it's also critical for Steve, and how much effort he's put into it and how much his body can take at this part of the race.
Well, it happened out of sight of one of the tunnels. One wonders how it happened, in fact, whether it was a sudden spurt, which would be unwise at this stage of the race, or just gradual pressure. But Charlie Spedding now seems to be holding the distance.
The key for Charlie is not to settle for second here, because Steve Jones is looking strong, and he's still got this problem with his leg, but knowing Steve, he's not short on bravery. That's the last thing anyone could suggest about him. And Charlie's got to settle in that position and realise there's well over a mile to run here. In fact, there's a couple of miles to run here. So this is the question is, the dilemma is, you know, does Steve's leg stand up, and does Charlie gather momentum and going up the mile, because they've still got quite a few miles to go.
Well, I can tell you that Gateshead's holding its breath, and so too is Eber Vale and the RAF, and so is Annette and David and Matthew, Steve's family, watching this critical break. And they've been through now Greenwich, Lewisham, Southwark, the City of London, Westminster coming up.
They're just approaching the 24-mile mark. And it looks as if Jones is stretching away. 29 years old. Used to be a formidable member of Bristol Athletic Club with such athletes as Nick Rose. but now a member of Newport Harriers. And what a marathon runner he's proving to be. To survive the problems he had and then get away from Spedding. A truly remarkable run. And Spedding hanging on there, waiting for any sign of weakness at all. I wonder if he would dare to think at this stage, because he can see the lead car with the time ticking away in front. I wonder if he'd be daring to think not only of winning, but also of breaking the course record with the special cash prize that carries as well of several $1,000s.
What is astonishing is how close it's gone to the predictions, Brendan. Everything about the race has been predicted, and yet it's lost none of its excitement. And here's Ingrid Christensen at the tower, being helped along by those good club runners, past 22 miles, and still on course for the fastest run ever by a woman.
Well, Steve Jones looks a little bit more relaxed than he did over the cobbles there, and they, like David said, they hate the cobble bit. I mean, it really is a problem across there, and it actually coincided with him having his problem. But Steve is certainly not short on courage, and he's certainly not short on stamina, and he certainly won't have thought about the money.
A landmark there in the foreground, Cleopatra's Needle, but not a glance across from Steve Jones or Charlie Spedding. Concentration vital now.
Interesting one, David. Steve was asked at one of his press conferences, why did he change his mind and run in this year's London Marathon when he said he wouldn't run for months? And he said he was persuaded that he really needed it to improve his profile. He wasn't really well known amongst British athletic circle. Always known by all the cross-country runners and marathon runners. But Charlie Spedding, in winning the London Marathon, was known throughout the lands. And that's what Steve Jones is doing in the London Marathon this year.
Looks as if Steve Jones accelerated slightly again there, gaining confidence all the time and gaining ground on Charlie Spedding. They're in Northumberland Avenue now, approaching Trafalgar Square. Just beyond 24 miles. Just over 2 hours at the moment. The course record held by Hugh Jones is 2 hours, 9 minutes, 24 seconds, set in 1982. And Jones certainly stretching away. Looked in danger there for one or two of the spectators, in fact. Nice shot there of Trafalgar Square, Admiralty Arch. They'll leave Nelson's column on their right-hand side as they come up and turn left through the arches, and then that long stretch along the Mile with Buckingham Palace beckoning in the distance. And what a marvellous sight that must be for Steve Jones as he goes through Admiralty Arch. In front of him, the Mall. In the far distance, Buckingham Palace. And as he turns left in front of Buckingham Palace, he's got a mile to go. The Mall, of course, always closed to traffic on Sunday, and today is no exception. The time cars had to turn right there along Horseguards Parade, and that's Chris Brasher, the race organiser, telling Jones to drive for home and probably saying, you're close to the record. Charlie Spedding, too, within sight of the record, and a lot will depend on what they can find in the last mile. Spedding looking very, very easy, but without the strength to go with Jones. One looks at that shot and it rather looks as if Spedding is closing, but that's a long distance shot down the Mall, and there may be some foreclosing on the camera shot. But Jones looks to me as if he's feeling the pain. He certainly is hurting, it's not surprising. And you can tell by the look in his face. Deep concentration. Nothing matters to him now except that finishing line. That's all he's thinking about. Keep driving, keep going. He's not bothering to look back where Spedding is. But certainly, this marathon will have left its mark on Steve Jones. A marvellous shot, which underlines the pain of the marathon at the very top level. Spedding, by comparison, looks easier. But you can see that by the paleness of his face that he too is feeling the strain. He certainly may have got a yard or two back, but nothing significant yet. But still over a mile to go.
Steve Jones looked drawn and fairly haggard. He's 135 pounds. When he starts out, he's about 7 pounds lighter now, although he's been taking on a lot more water. This is where the lack of experience over the marathon distance must be casting the odd doubt in his mind. It's about, what, 45 metres, weaving very slightly, but so too is Charlie Spedding. And that must be a marvellous sight ahead.
Actually, rather strangely there, Steve Jones veered away from the short course, and at this stage, marathon runners are trying to save every inch. He went out towards the middle of the road as if he wasn't quite sure that he had to turn left in front of the palace. That's the left turn. There's Australia Gate. Then he goes left into Birdcage Walk, and he's got a mile to go now.
Well, I was asking Charlie about running up the mile, you know, about the historic site and everything, and Charlie said the only thing he can remember about last year is running up the mile. There was still a hell of a long way to go, and it's a mile, but it's a very long mile because it's the last mile.
And if he has a mile to go, well, it's got to be, if it's to break the course record of 2:09.24, it's got to be just outside 5 minutes, and both these men are seriously tiring now. So that record still on, but there must be a question mark as well, with a mile to go. 2 hours 4:43 at the moment.
This is a deceptive last mile, in fact, because it's a gradual climb. The clock's significant there. Remember, the course record by Hugh Jones, 2 hours, 9 minutes, 24. Now, if he can keep going at around 5 minute mile pace, he should make it, but it's going to be close. It's a matter now of what he can find in these closing stages. The climb is not a painful climb, it's a gradual climb, in fact, but of course, when you run a race as hard as this, you're bound to feel it.
I think he's looking strong again. I really do. I think he's got a little bit back, and he's putting in an extra effort, and I don't think Charlie can close the gap. That gap is growing. Steve Jones is on his way to a remarkable victory. He's had some excellent company for most of the way. It's been an epic race, and Charlie has pushed him hard. And if the record is on, it's due to this man pushing him for, well, most of the race. But I think the race is practically over. I think Steve's got a new bite about him, and he's picked his knees up a little bit. He's bouncing along, and he really can smell the finish.
And way in the distance, it looks like Hurler of West Germany in third place, with Hutton 4 and Jorgensen of Denmark 5. Chris Brasher, the race organizer, waiting for Jones to come up. He's getting a lot of encouragement from these supporters, and my word, he needs it to lift him towards the record. You can see the climb there. He's within sight almost now of Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament, and just beyond that is the finish on Westminster Bridge. You can see he's finding it hard, but he's over the hump now and going slightly downhill. And all he's got to do is keep going, and surely the record must be his. And Jones going away from Charlie Spedding, who was certainly settled for second place. 26 miles gone, 385 yards left, and we're going to see a new course record. Steve Jones is trying to save every yard by running close to the crowd. So too is Charlie Spedding, moving across now as the procession moves towards Westminster Bridge. The timing car moves out of the way, and Jones sees that welcome sight of the finishing gantry. Trying to raise a sprint, and it's going to be very, very fast indeed. The fastest marathon ever run in this country. What a welcome sight that must be. The final 100 metres is going to be outside his world best in Chicago last October, but well inside the United Kingdom record. The fastest marathon ever run in this country. And he's done it by over a minute. A new United Kingdom all-comers record for Steve Jones, who finishes really strong. Charlie Spedding, the champion of 12 months ago, finishes in second place on, for him, a very, very fast time indeed. Well over a minute inside his personal best. Numbers 1 and 2 in the marathon have finished first and second. Number 2, the winner. Number 1 in second place. First, Jones, and second, Spedding. With Alistair Hutton now of Scotland having his own private battle with the West German hurler for third place, which the Scot appears to be winning. Head down, looking back at Hurler, and he's got Hurler beaten. And this, too, is a very fast marathon by Alistair Hutton. Alistair, who's a member of Edinburgh Southern Harriers, finishes in third place, and a 1-2-3 for Great Britain in very, very fast times indeed.
2 hours 9:15 for Alistair Hutton. He will be absolutely delighted with that as Christoph Hurler takes the line, just a few seconds behind him.
And both those, we believe, smashed the old United Kingdom record. So it looks as if the first 4 athletes ran the fastest 4 marathons ever seen in this country. Jorgensen of Denmark, third 2 years ago, finishes in 5th place today, and he'll be well satisfied with that time. It's the time that's important to him. As you may have seen, he immediately went down to the watch to check it. And those 5 are long, long way clear of the 6th place athlete.
And the drama hasn't stopped, because we've had a check at 23 miles from Ingrid Christiansen, 2 hours 3 minutes and 5 seconds, which puts her just on 2 hours 20 and a half, which is chunks inside of the world record.
So Peterson of the United States looks like the 6th man, and I suspect there in 7th place is Kus of Poland. Meanwhile, back down the field, this looks like the leader in the wheelchair marathon.
Spotting their numbers, we know Jerry O'Rourke has been just behind. Is that number 6? I think that's Chris Hallam from Cwmbran. So Wales are having a great day. Unemployed, holds British records at swimming, broke world records in 50-metre breaststroke, this lead man. Chris Hallam, paraplegic from Cwmbran, having his race with Jerry O'Rourke, and they've been locked together. That's Jerry O'Rourke from Dublin, Chris Hallam from Cwmbran, and they're racing just like the marathon runners, tucked in behind. 100-mile-a-week men, both of these. And they could be on for their fastest times too. They'll be watching their stopwatches.
That's a long way back in the course, by the way. These athletes have still got some 9 miles to go. They're out on the Isle of Dogs, passing the 17-mile feeding station.
Peter Fellows just went through from Buckinghamshire. He's a teacher.
And these athletes, by the way, haven't reached halfway yet. They're at about 11 miles.
Frenchman just went through, Francois Ridal. And is that T35? Christopher Rick from Croydon. a Blackheath Harrier. He doesn't. Well, he hasn't run for them for quite some time, I don't think.
Meanwhile, that's Dahl of Norway finishing. Well, now in the mile, just through Admiralty Arch, we've got the First Lady, Ingrid Christensen, who is looking for a new world record. The world record held by Benoit of America. Her time set in 1983 of 2 hours, 22 minutes, 43 seconds. Well, I would say from here she's got about 1.5 miles to go. So I would think she must be on target. She's very, very tired, quite obviously. She'll need all the competition around her she can get. But she's a very, very strong athlete.
And Evan Locken could help her along. That runner wearing 9.40. He's got a bit of experience. If he can just run with her and keep her going, keep the rhythm going, it's going to be a truly remarkable run. She said that world cross-country distance was far too short for her when she was beaten by Zola Budd, but she was obviously tuning up for this, and tired that she is, she's still on for a remarkable time. There's this battle, and it looks like Jerry O'Rourke's just saved enough. The Irishman pulling away. They'll be going 2 hours 14:06, so they're on lifetime best, the pair of them. Tremendous run, tremendous race. Trevor Wright in the background. There's a race back on again. They're battling with Trevor Wright on the left-hand side. Look at this for a run to the line. Chris Hallam has found just enough. Sprint finish from him. Massive arms and shoulders from the breaststroke swimmer. Look at that. Tremendous race. Both of them lifetime best. And Ingrid Christensen being urged on, pushed on her way, helped along. Historic piece of running from a woman.
What is quite remarkable to me about Ingrid Christensen is that she's had a terrible winter. In fact, the winter in Norway has prevented training, and she's been training on a treadmill in the kitchen.
That's absolutely right. In fact, before she went to the World Cross Country Championship, she hadn't run in grass for almost 6 months, so the distance was short and the surface was wrong. But here we're witnessing one of the great runs of all time. Funnily enough, she did an interview in Running Magazine the other week, and she was asked because of her cross-country skiing background whether that affected her running style, you know, the high hunched up shoulders and the driving arms. And she said, no, actually, it's not the cross-country skiing that gives me the hunched up shoulders. It's the knitting I do. I do an awful lot of knitting, and I'm sure that's what gives me the problem. And the other question, she was asked about her squinting, grimacing face. You know, are you always as tired as that? She said, no, I can't see so very well. That's why my face is always screwed up. But so it should be now, because she's running close to 2 hours 21, which is well over a minute faster than Joan Benoit. She's glancing at her watch an awful lot, and she knows that she's struggling. She's got to keep going, and that record is just slowly just slipping a little bit away. She's run very, very fast early on, beginning to pay the price now.
I wonder if Graham Ellis can whisper in her ear, David, the 29-year-old. He's a very good runner, Holmfirth Harrier, running alongside her. If he knows what the time is and knows what an important time this is for her, he could just urge her gently along. Tremendous run.
I think they'll all recognise that Christensen's very close to that. And Graham Ellis of Holmfirth just behind her there. Locker just leading. She's very, very tired, working hard to keep going. And now in birdcage walk.
Just remind you, she's a celebrated mum, of course.
Christensen, 2 hours 17 minutes 12, and she's slowing all the time. There's no question about that. But she's still got about 5 minutes in hand. The world record, 2:22.43. but it's going to be quite a battle up that slight climb up Birdcage Walk. Graham Ellis is 178, Locke is 940, and 217 alongside a Neil Featherby, who's a member of Norfolk Olympians. He's a 225 man. He's run faster than that today, and it looks as if Graham Ellis, a useful athlete in his own right, 2 hours 23 man, is going all the way with Christensen and trying to encourage her. And she's going to need that help, there's no question about that. Just 2 hours 18 minutes. She's still got about 4.5 minutes to spare. She's still not in sight, of course, of the finish, just completing that climb. But I've got a strong feeling that if you can just keep going at this pace, we'll have a new world best time.
Well, this is where Steve Jones found just a little bit. The gentle downslope helped him, and that's what she needs now. She needs the side of the finish line. A little bit of gentle downhill, and a little bit of help from Graham Ellis perhaps alongside. And all eyes out for Ingrid Christensen.
71 is Jonathan Kilsby from Haringey.
Still we wait, and clearly she's slowed down quite a bit in these closing stages, and there she is following the timing cart, and she's going to break the world best by, well, certainly over a minute by the look of it. There is no doubt at all that she has paid in the second part of the race for the very fast early pace. She's got 385 yards left. And finding new energy and strength as the crowds rise to her, recognizing this is the best marathon ever run by a woman. Just about 200 meters left, and it really is hard work for her. John Offord trying to help her, of Leicester Athletic Club, and she's been directed now onto the far side to the women's finishing lane. John Disley, the course director, waving her through to the point where the women will finish. Chris Brasher there, rejoicing in what is going to be a new world best marathon time for a woman. The previous best, Joan Benoit, the Olympic champion of America, 2 hours 22:43, and she has knocked nearly 2 minutes off that time. Striding home, the girl who won last year wins again this year, and this time with a new world best.
And Christopher Brasher has a cash flow problem. He's got 1 world record to play for and 2 course records. And that's a considerable amount of money. A coach there to greet her. Magnificent run, and a lot of the club runners running alongside her will be proud and privileged to have done so. Sarah Rowell on her way too. Sarah Rowell wearing 004 in the next batch. May well be the next girl home. We're looking for Sally Ann Hales as well. There she is in the middle wearing pink. Sarah Rowell wearing F4.
And looking there just behind, she's passed her clubmate Sally Ann Hales in the closing stages at F9. Sally Ann Hales has been going extremely well all the way through, and I think these girls may just miss the British record. Sarah Rowell, who ran for Great Britain in the Olympic Games. These are both Dartford Harriers. Sarah's only 22, she's a Kent cross-country champion. She won the 1983 World Student Games Marathon. She started marathon running very young indeed and was 14th and the youngest placed athlete in the Olympic Games, coached by Cliff Temple, as so many distance runners are. Sally Ann Hales, only 23, is way inside her personal best as well, which was 2 hours 40 minutes. She's in third place, doesn't look distressed at all, and in fact is looking remarkably composed. She's run a very courageous race, having been in second place for a very, very long time.
Running alongside Ed White from South Wirral, Liverpool Harrier, wearing 915. Sarah, 879. That's Steve Llewellyn from Mid Glamorgan in Wales, from Merthyr Tydfil. One of the news has reached him about Eberveil's hero, Steve Jones. Sarah looking over her shoulder to see where Sally Ann is. One or two slowing, one or two having to walk. Cramp taking its toll, and there will be times when Mother Nature proves too formidable a foe. We've said it before, we'll say it again, and that will be happening from now on in, that's for sure.
Some very tired athletes there, not surprising. And still, there are athletes way, way back on the course. Even at 11 miles at Jamaica Road, the celebrations continue, with the last of the stragglers having probably just gone through.
Little town are melting away. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York. And if I make it there, I'll make it anywhere.
It's cold in that bikini.
I'm feeling just fine. Just fine at the moment.
You think it's the right sort of thing to wear for this race?
Not being too red off at the moment.
Have you been getting a few comments en route about it?
Yes.
I bet you have. Enjoy it.
I want to wake up in a city that never sleeps and find I'm #1, top of the hill, king of the room.
What's the dress? What is this covering, by the way?
It's my sweatshirt.
Oh, your sweatshirt. What's the foam rubber for?
Stop me shoulders.
The what?
Stop impressing in me shoulders. I thought you was a clever bloke.
I'm not really. I'm not
got
really.
university and all that lot, and he don't even know.
I've never seen this before.
No, I'm an angel.
I see. You're looking for you finished.
I'm out of that, aren't I?
Are you going to fly to the finish?
Yeah, I've got the last mile. You wait. I'll break them a mile record.
Let's see you do it.
Anywhere, it's up to you.
Archie's going back to dancing, I think.
New York, yeah, New York, New York, New York.
Well, having had that quick look around the course, they're still streaming through Admiralty Arch and along the Mall, and we're waiting at Westminster Bridge for Sarah Rowell to finish in second place, we believe, in the women's race. The British record stands at 2:28.54, and she is just now coming towards the traffic lights. The girl in pink, and she could be very, very close to that British record that Priscilla Welsh set in the Olympic Games last year. And this is yet another astounding run. Only 22 years old, and I wonder if she realises how close she is to the record. She's still got well over a minute to spare. And 200 metres to go means surely that the British record will tonight belong to 22 years old Sarah Rowell of Dartford Harriers. Chris Brasher directing the tired athlete towards the women's finishing funnel, and the time she has to beat, well, she's got nearly a minute to spare still, is 2 hours, 28 minutes, 54 seconds. Keeping her form well, not panicking, and knowing, I think, with the clock ticking above the finishing funnel, that she has a new British record. The fastest run for a British woman marathon runner in history, breaking the old record by some 45 seconds.
And beating her own personal best by 2.5 minutes, as will this girl, without a doubt. Sally Ann Hales, also from Dartford, 23 years of age, ideally built for the event. Previous best 2 hours 40:08, so she's beaten it by 11 minutes, and that is colossal.
2 hours 28 minutes 36, and that means that this young lady becomes the second fastest Briton in history. So she's beaten the old British record as well and looks totally undistressed. Meanwhile, a look around the course.
Good morning, sir. I don't know whether you can talk to me while you're juggling, can you?
Hello, how are you?
What's your name?
Colin Franco.
Have you?
Yours?
My name's Bob Wilson.
Hi, Bob, how are you doing?
I'm very pleased to meet you.
Nice to see you, too.
Have you dropped those at all en route yet?
About 6 times.
About 6 times, yeah, that's all. You're in danger here with me with this mic, aren't you?
Well, it's not too bad. Some lad squirted water in my face. That was the worst.
I'm sure it was. I think I better leave you before we drop them again. Good luck.
In, out, and shake it all about. You do the Yankee turkey, then you turn around. And that's what it's all about. Oh, the Yankee turkey. Oh, the Yankee turkey. Oh, the Yankee turkey. And each thing I'm straight, round, you put your right thing out. Shake it all about. You do the Yankee turkey, then you turn around. And that's what it's all about.
Interview. Come on up.
Have I won?
No, you get a prize from our camera crew. You're the most attractive runner that's come
Thank
through.
you very much.
What's your name?
Anita.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, I see. Oh, yes. We did notice that.
Funny.
Now, tell me, I'm sorry to stop you. Are you running for any particular charity or cause?
Cancer research, heart research.
Yeah, I see. Are you going to finish in what time, hopefully?
7 hours.
I see.
Perhaps 4. I tried for 4.
Yeah, I see. By the way, what are you doing tonight?
I don't know. I should be absolutely flaked out.
Why don't I go along with you then?
Everybody in Reading. I promise to wait.
The interview's over. It's brilliant.
Well, what a race this 1985 event has produced. We've got the fastest ever run in the United Kingdom by a marathon runner, won by Steve Jones, and a new United Kingdom all-comers record. Second in an English record, Charlie Spedding of Gateshead. Third in a Scottish record, Alistair Hutton of Edinburgh Southern. Fourth in a West German record, Christoph Höhler. Fifth in a Danish record, Jorgensen. In the women's event, Ingrid Christensen, first with a new world record for Norway. Second place, Sarah Rowell with a new British record. Sarah, a member of Dartford, and from the same club with the second fastest time by a British woman in history, Sally Ann Hales. And here now the winner, Steve Jones, talking to David Davis.
Steve, many congratulations. Firstly, how satisfied with the time? Would you have hoped for a world record?
Well, the time was irrelevant. The important thing was to win the race, and that's what I set out to do today. That's why I tucked in with the group and just covered every move until I made my own move.
Was it a harder race than you expected?
From the last 4 miles was very hard. I had suffered from a bit of stomach cramp. I had to slow down.
But once I recovered, things went okay.
With the conditions ideal?
Ideal, yeah. Yeah, one or two places it felt as if it was a strong wind in my face, but I wasn't too bad. I was just covering the rest of the runners and just running their race, really. Not my own race, but at their pace.
Were you surprised that the pack was as large as it was? 5
Well, it was
people
quite
stayed?
slow. It was quite slow up until 15, 16 miles, and then Charlie, I think, picked it up for a while, and Christoph picked it up, and then I just picked up the last 4 then.
The world record yesterday of Lopez, did that put a pressure on you? Were you disappointed?
Well, it took the pressure off, really. Like I said, the object of today's race was to win the race, so the time was irrelevant. You know, whether Lopez ran 2.6 or 2.9 yesterday didn't really matter.
So what next? What's the prospect?
Well, next is just get the track season over in the summer. Hopefully a fast 10k somewhere in July, and then maybe another marathon in October.
And come back to defend the title next year?
I don't know. I'll have to wait and see. It's the European and Commonwealth year next year, and I'd like to prepare for those races.
Finally, your outstanding memory of today?
I can't say that on TV. I think you'll see me slow down on the rerun somewhere around the London Tower somewhere. And that's probably the most outstanding part of the race.
But you're a happy man?
Oh, yeah.
Many, many congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you.
So as Steve Jones goes on his way to relax, still there are many, many thousands dragging aching limbs around the course.
And he might have shed a little light on what happened on Tower Bridge. This race still very much in progress.
Dozens of athletes still going through the 17-mile mark at Island Gardens on the Isle of Dogs. And rather surprisingly, not taking advantage of the feeding station there. I know there have been some, there we are, some 250,000 cartons of water out there. And to the great delight of Chris Brasher, they've all been supplied with straws. And anybody who's ever actually run and had to take a drink at speed, it's very awkward, isn't it, Brendan?
It is, the old cups swimming all over the place and getting on your face and getting on your running vest. But Chris has thought of everything this time. He's actually got packaged water. It must be the only packaged tap water in the world.
Kay McShane wearing 8 from Cork. Ireland have had a good day in the wheelchair marathon. She's the secretary that competed in the Dublin City Marathon in '83 and was being selected for the Paraplegic Olympic Games in the United States of America for track events. She's a 1,500 metre, 5,000 metre and marathon wheelchair athlete.
Well done, son. I'll tell you what, you really look done, aren't you?
No, I'm fine at the moment. I'm running for school in Roehampton, Paddockwood. School meant me physically disabled children.
How much weight are you carrying now?
17 odd stone.
Oh.
And my wife?
Is your wife here? Come in. Have you met since the start of the marathon?
Yes, she keeps rubbing my legs.
Give it a kiss, give it a kiss. Come on, give it a kiss. There we are. Who's going to win? You're going to win.
She holds all.
All right, you're going to win. You both start. You hold by. Oh, ready, go.
Well, the Tower Bridge looking fairly quiet, but meanwhile underneath they're going through, having been round the Isle of Dogs. They pass underneath Tower Bridge there and past Traitor's Gate in the Tower of London. And in fact, although the bridge looked deserted, it's by no means deserted. These athletes are still going over the top there at 12.5 miles. And they're going to be out there for an awful long time. I wonder if the vicar is there, K501. And in fact, it's Percy Gray from St Crispin's Vicarage in Southwark, an ex-paratrooper, who's normally preaching on the London Marathon course because I think the course passes his church.
I asked him if he was missing church this morning on a Sunday. No, he said he's got an early morning service and he'll be back for the later one as well. He's a tough old character, fought in Burma, and as I say, the Docklands settlement will benefit from his run today.
This scene on the Isle of Dogs once more. And the race so well organised that even at this stage, they're not running out of sponges and drinking water.
And the gods were kind, were they not, to provide the weather that was ideal. There's Kay McShane again. Weather absolutely superb. A little cool, but just fine. And it'll make life that much easier. And the Pearly Kings and Queens have done a marvellous job. London has turned out.
Just singing in the rain. Put your hand on the shoulder of the person in front of you and make a crocodile. That's it. Strolling.
The parties continue alongside the route, as they will now throughout the day. And once again, the weather has been kind to the London Marathon. And what a truly memorable occasion this has become. And not just a memorable carnival occasion, but also a memorable race. Steve Jones winning the race for Wales with a new United Kingdom best. Our record, that's an all-comers record of 2 hours, 8 minutes, 16 seconds. Charlie Spedding, the holder from Gateshead, second, 2 hours, 8 minutes, 34 seconds. Alistair Hutton of Edinburgh Southern Harriers in Scotland in third place, 2 hours, 9 minutes, 15 seconds. And the women's race, a new world best by Ingrid Christensen of Norway in 2 hours, 21.06. In second place, a new British best by Sarah Rowell of Dartford Harriers, 2 hours, 28.06. And in third place, Sally Ann Hales of the same club, in the second fastest time ever by a British woman, 2 hours, 28 minutes, 39 seconds. A truly remarkable race.
You're watching BBC One. And now Sunday Worship. This is the Day is a television service that links together viewers all over the country in prayer and meditation. Today, viewers are joined in this act of worship by Marilyn Bear in her home on the Isle of Dogs in East London, and with her is Anne Easter.
Hello, we're joining you a bit later today so that we could all see the start of the London Marathon. And we join you from my friend Marilyn Bear's flat way up in the clouds on the 16th floor of a tower block on the Isle of Dogs. We've just been watching the runners go by the window. During our time together, we're going to join in two symbolic acts. Before Marilyn reads the Gospel, I'm going to light this candle, and it'll be great if you can light a candle too, and we'll keep it lit for our time together. Then towards the end of the time together, Marilyn will say a prayer over some bread and we'll share it in celebration of God's love for us. You know, just as at a wedding or christening people get together over a meal, I hope you'll feel that we can be joined in that way too. So you might need a minute to gather your candle and some matches and bread or something. So while you do, we'll sit back and make ourselves comfortable as we relax and prepare to worship. This is the day that the Lord has made. The people of the Old Testament times knew all about long journeys, Remember, they were the ones who wandered for 40 years through the wilderness trying to find the promised land. But all that time God looked after them and was with them. They never went hungry. Michael Orme's going to read us a few verses about that from the Old Testament book of Deuteronomy. He's reading from his home in North London.
You shall remember all the way which the Lord your God has led you these 40 years, that he might humble you, testing you to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. And he humbled you, and let you hunger, and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but that man lives by everything that proceeds out of the mouth of the Lord. Your clothing did not wear out upon you, and your foot did not swell these 40 years.
O God, the going is hard, and we are slow and faltering. We trip and stumble, and so often fail to recognize that it is you who again and again help us to our feet. Bring us from the unreal to the real, from despair to hope, from darkness to light, and from death to eternal life.